sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
We're working towards taking another step this week, and really the unique part about it is usually we take that fourth preseason game. In this case, we're doing it in the third preseason week, so I think that the important piece for us is that we not only stay sharp, but we're focused on taking another step.
We're not coaching. We're not results-based. We've never been results-based here.
Mike Danger.
Dude, everything is results-driven. Every walk of life is... What do you mean you're not results-driven?
Yeah, I think he gets over his skis sometimes.
That's a long way of saying we don't care about stats.
Gene Battaglia.
I think so. Like, if you're doing the right things, that's just kind of the way it is. But if you're doing the right things, and that's what he's saying
Process.
there, it's about the process, right?
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Just having a day. Just having a day at battle with our technology gods, trying to make it all work. Gino, did your computer update over there okay?
Just in the nick of time.
That's good.
Yeah. Is your mic working?
Today,
Yeah.
our show title will be called Just in the Nick of Time, because I feel like we're just skating by. Paper clips, bubble gum, we're holding it all together with whatever, duct tape, whatever it takes, ball bearings. We're holding it all together. And we've got 3 hours of fantastic sports talk for you here in the Flower City on the way here in the Sports Bar.
Yeah, beautiful afternoon. Let's talk some football. We'll talk some Bills. We'll certainly talk some fantasy football. And I just want to ask this question, Danger. Why would anyone pitch to Aaron Judge?
Right?
In 2024.
Right? It's otherworldly. It's godlike. It's...
No, you're talking about Bryce Harper's hair. That's weird.
It's magnanimous.
Yeah.
Is he the best hitter we've had in the game since Bonds?
Oh, power hitter.
Yeah.
Sure.
For sure, right?
For sure, yeah.
Now, yeah, I mean, I'm not here to say what he's doing isn't remarkable. It is. Individually, he's setting the league on fire. Are they still getting bounced in the first round of the postseason?
Oh, cruel. I would say that this is a good little sign here that maybe it's not going to be all doom and gloom, because I view Cleveland as being one of those teams that, you don't want to face in the first round, but Yankees taking care of business right now, 5-0. They are up, and as we kind of teased there, Aaron Judge with his 48th of the season. It was a solo shot. Stanton is also homered. So if the Yankees just get good pitching, which is what they're getting today from Garrett Cole, he's allowed only one hit. He's walked 5, but no run so far, and they're in the 6th.
We'll talk some Buffalo Bills football as training camp has officially ended.
Yeah, isn't it kind of strange to say that? But because tomorrow is essentially just a walkthrough, Saturday is a game, and then... Well, essentially, you have 2 weeks to prepare for the Arizona Cardinals, and those cutdowns could happen Sunday. They could happen Monday. The deadline being Tuesday at 4 o'clock. I don't anticipate the Buffalo Bills dragging the entire cutdown to Tuesday at 4 o'clock. But with that being said, this is the last day. We figure we're going to have 91 guys out there. So we'll be talking in the 4 o'clock hour to our friend Thad Brown, from News 8, sports director, as there are some questions about the depth here at safety, at wide receivers certainly, and do the Buffalo Bills have a kicker problem? We'll talk to Thad Brown coming up in the 4 o'clock hour.
One of our favorites stopping by later this hour to talk fantasy football. We weren't able to connect with him yesterday. Luckily, we were able to talk to him earlier this afternoon. Our conversation with Sigmund Bloom of Football Guys here coming up at 3:25.
Yeah, as there are a lot of questions you got fantasy-wise. The rookies, what do you do with the rookie quarterbacks? Which ones do you trust? Well, do you trust more than others, I think you should say. Offenses you want a piece of. What about these wide receivers that right now aren't in camp? Some Sigmund, a little tease here. One guy, he says, don't worry about it. The other guy, I can see this kind of
maybe worrying about
it. So, hey, you probably have your first draft coming up next week, I'm going to guess. You want to listen to Sigmund Bloom coming up.
Selfishly, I wanted to book Sigmund today because tonight is my first draft.
Is this the neighborhood Goomba?
This is the my original league. This is the DIAFC.
Oh, the one I was a part of and actually won.
Yeah, you're not
That's
invited anymore.
Well, that's right.
As soon as we
Yeah.
could get you out of the league, we said, yeah, all right, this guy's got to go.
No, the assassins. That was the thing. I taunted. I wasn't invited back last year. I'm like, okay.
No, what was it last year? You weren't able to make the draft work. It was on a night where you had. It might have been on your anniversary.
Yeah, that was it. And rather than autopilot and give up.
Nobody wants to be that guy.
No, I would have done that. I'm not going. But
no. Nobody wants to do that. You want to claim ownership of your team. You want to draft your guys. You don't want to leave anything to chance. If you're like me, I can't auto draft. I can't do it, man.
Do you remember the first year how that all happened? Because you're like, oh yeah, I was invited. I was so excited and I prepared, and
it was on your anniversary.
Yeah, and the executive producer says, well, that's great. We could do this together. I'm like, oh,
just what you wanted.
Fantastic.
Yeah, co-management with my wife in fantasy football. Now, I'm kind. And there's a part of me that's kind of jealous about that because my wife is the opposite. She has such a deep hatred for football season and fantasy football that she wants to be nowhere near me when I'm drafting tonight. Nowhere near me.
Did she date a football player or something? There's something bad.
It's just not something she grew up with.
There are some people that hate football. Like the big boss lady here hates football.
Hates it.
Mm-hmm. Like, I can understand that, hey, that's not my cup of tea. I like different sports. I like the Olympics. I like soccer. I like baseball, whatever it is. But just to hate on something.
Hates it. So that's fine. So slowly but surely I'll bring her along. Maybe.
Did she try out for the cheerleading team and not get on? No.
She wasn't athletic. She didn't do anything anything athletic in high school. It's just not really how she's wired. We went to a Bills game before we got married. We went to a Bills game, when we were dating. We had a blast. Maybe I'll take her to a Bills game or a Bears game somewhere down the road, just her and I, and we'll have a blast. She'll have fun. I can promise you, she'll have fun. Even if she's faking it, she'll be fun. It'll be fun.
She nearly fell asleep at the Ammer game though. But to her defense, she was up since 3:30. Whatever.
Yeah. The hours aren't real conducive to a late night watching sports when you don't have an interest in what's happening, the competition that's going on. So Sigmund stops by in about 15, 20 minutes here, and we'll have a nice lengthy fantasy football conversation with one of the football guys, Sigmund Bloom. You can join us at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN is our phone number. We appreciate you stopping by and listening in the free-to-download Odyssey app. 95.7 FM, AM 950, our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, our Twitch stream, twitch.tv/The Fan Rochester, even on your smart device. When you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan.
What would you say about this receiver from 2023? Because the Bills right now are going to be looking for different options. You would figure there's going to be guys that are being released next week, and the Bills will look at the back end and say, could we do better? Well, this guy last year, still only 24 years old, 49 receptions, 518 yards, 4 touchdowns. Who am I talking about? Well, this guy is not available to the Buffalo Bills because Washington just traded him. Jan Dotson, 16th overall pick from 2022, goes to Philadelphia? Who's going to be the number 3 receiver, if at that? A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. And it's essentially a pick swap, but one that involves a third-round pick that makes me say, all right, well, I guess this is why Washington did it. I'm surprised from the standpoint, Danger, that Washington, you got the young quarterback, you want to have as many pieces around, but maybe we're just not paying close enough attention to what's going on in Commander Camp, meaning this guy was not it, maybe not a fit.
When you look at the history of the Commanders' first-round draft picks here in recent years, it's ugly. None of them are there. I mean, this is a franchise that was so down bad that the overhaul wasn't enough of an overhaul. Maybe now you can say, with all of the stench of Daniel Snyder gone, with all of their leadership being turned over, including a new head coach this year, that moving forward, this team maybe is something, but maybe not as soon as this year. You want to believe that they're making the right moves, that they're doing the right things. We certainly like Jaden Daniels. I think that's a step in the right direction. We'll see what kind of a player he turns out to be in the NFL. I like Dan Quinn in that role. I think he's going to be fine as their head coach. I just imagine a guy like Dotson, much like the other first-round draft picks that are no longer in Washington, just wore out their welcome. That they were part of this process. They were hung up in a process that was being conducted by less than ideal circumstances.
Less than ideal. Like, my favorite, I mean, by favorite, I'm putting that in finger quotes there. The son of Daniel Snyder went to Ohio State, and the son told his dad, draft this quarterback. And that's how Dwayne Haskins was selected in the first round by the then Washington football team. And then, yeah, it's been more than 2 years since Haskins was killed by a dump truck there.
Well, that's those days are gone, and I think they're doing their best to try and rehabilitate and get things on the right path. And if you're Jahan Dotson or any of the other first-round draft picks that they had that are no longer there, you're probably like, all right, good, I'm gone. And now you're tearing it down to the studs and you're trying to rebuild something in Washington. And Dotson's not a part of the plans. And that could have been an attitude thing. That could have been an off-field thing. It might not have anything to do with his ability on the field. We'll see what kind of a receiver. I mean, for a wide receiver 3 in Philadelphia, you could do a lot worse than Jahan Dotson. I don't know that I would have given up a third, but he's certainly still young, and you would imagine there's a lot of gas left in the tank. We'll see what he looks like in an offense that should be competent with Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts throwing him the football.
Yeah, and this kind of is reminiscent a little bit of the first year in Buffalo for Sean McDermott, and then Brandon Beane, who was on board during training camp, where we're in Danger's office on a Friday, and I remember Masterstroke was there, and all of a sudden, one fell swoop, the Buffalo Bills trade Sammy Watkins to the Rams and send Ronald Darby to the Eagles. And it's just kind of the self-awareness.
It's what you have to do when you're trying to rebuild a culture. You don't want any of the old guard that was there to be a part of it. I mean, imagine Sean McDermott working with Doug Whaley. It wouldn't have worked. It didn't work. I mean, the moment Sean McDermott came in, he took over. And Whaley was kind of relegated to, I'm here, but this is Sean McDermott's draft. And then you bring in the guy that you do have alignment with, and you remove all of the old elements, the old guard. You bring in your own guys. You move on from the Sammy Watkins of the world, the guys that clearly didn't really want to be here. And in the past, you'd done that too in Buffalo. I mean, I remember when Marshawn got dealt, right? Like, that was clearly he doesn't want to be here. You moved on from him probably well before you needed to. But what's the Tomlin line? We want volunteers, not hostages?
I think it's that, but I also think it's a little self-awareness. Like, is this player that we have right now, when we do get good, actually going to be a part of this team? And Dotson, drafted in, 22? You're going to have that conversation pretty quick that, are we going to pay this guy? And the answer is no. So to move up from a fifth to a third, it's pretty good there, I think, for Washington, for a guy that maybe was their number 3 this year.
In Buffalo, as we mentioned, training camp has officially come to a close, and Sean McDermott telling reporters today that the only player who's been definitely ruled out for week 1 is Matt Milano. So there's a little bit of reason to feel optimistic about the availability of Curtis Samuel with his turf toe or Marquez Valdez-Scantling with his neck injury being ready for this team week 1. And I like that they're mentioning MVS as one of those players who will be ready for week 1. We're here speculating whether or not he makes this team or not, like whether or not he deserves to be on this team. In their mind, he'll probably be ready week 1.
I'm not buying it. I think it's welcome to week 1 injury fog. Sean McDermott has to say Matt Milano's not going to be ready because we know the injury. He's already said the timeline here, but everything else is in this vague category. So why would you want? It would serve you no purpose to rule any of these players out right now. So Sean McDermott doesn't have to tell you by rule right now the extent of that turf toe for Curtis Samuel. Anybody that has a bumper bruise you will not see on the field coming up on Saturday. That can't be said for the Carolina Panthers. So if you are going to go to the game, come on down. Bryce Young, and Danger, how funny would this be? Like, the Panthers, who Dave Cannell is, I hope you're right on this, buddy, because Bryce Young, I didn't see it last year. A lot of people didn't see it last year. But you thought enough that, hey, we got to protect our second-year quarterback. What if he goes out there and stinks it up against a Bills defense that, 75, 80% of those Bills players won't be on the roster?
Yeah, I look at it the other way. I almost feel like, hey, we've got a kid who had a real rough first season and went through a regime change, lost coach in the middle of the season. Coach didn't really want to draft him. There's all kinds of turmoil around Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick from last year's draft. What are we going to do to build him up? How can we make him believe that he's going to be a suitable NFL starter? And everybody knows you're going up against a second-team defense, but if he can go out there and be productive and own a second-team defense, then maybe Bryce Young goes into week 1 with a little bit more confidence. The flip side, your reality would be devastating, right? Like,
you get
Jesus, this guy can't even compete with the second team defense in the NFL, and he's our starting quarterback. What are we doing? I get excited. I think fans are always excited when they see their quarterback, their potential franchise quarterback, have a nice game. I had to check myself last week because Caleb Williams against the Bengals looked really good. And then I reminded myself, that's the Bengals' second-team defense. It's not really their starters.
Right.
Oh, by the way, Tyson Bagent also looked good against that second-team defense. There's no quarterback controversy, even though Bagent might have been a little bit more efficient than Williams. What are we talking about here? It's a second-team defense that they're going up against. But if you're Bryce Young, this is an opportunity to gain that confidence if you've lost any of it from a tumultuous first season. Do it against the Bills' second team. And, if you're the Bills, second-teamers, tee off on this guy. Make sure that they know that you belong in the NFL. I mean, if you're Joe Buffalo and you're out there starting again and you're calling the defense again, like, take it personally. Like, get after these guys and try to cement your legacy here. If not for the final 53, to at least be a part of this organization moving forward defensively.
Oh, gosh, you broke the seal on Joe Buffalo.
Joe Andreessen?
Joe Andreessen. Yeah. This feels like Kyle Williams, like the guy we can all kind of gravitate to and lunch pail. And like,
everybody loves it.
I just hope that's not the highlight of the year. Like, I'm hearing more doomy, gloomy stuff for the Buffalo Bills. We got to get her on. Last night, BetMGM tonight, Maggie Gray picks the Jets to win the division.
Oh! Whoa! 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 Whoa!
Now,
she's got to be objective now. She's a national reporter. She's a Bills fan. We've dubbed her as she's Bills Mafia.
That's true. And I can't put my chips as there are signs. I'm not going to acknowledge there aren't. For concern here for the Buffalo Bills, including a tough schedule. Can we acknowledge it's a really tough schedule? Going to, let's start with Jacksonville because they're really good. Let's start with Miami. Miami on the road, Jacksonville Monday night, Baltimore on Sunday night, Houston, and then the Jets. I mean, we could come out of that saying, wow, this Bills team is 2-4. What the heck happened here? I get that. It's a long year. I can't get behind the Jets just because of their offensive coordinator and their quarterback, not to mention their head coach. You're still the Jets.
If you look at each team from a talent standpoint, the Jets have the talent. The talent is there. Now, can they manage that talent? Can they get the talent to perform? Can they stay healthy? That's all to be determined. But you could argue, and I would listen to it, that the Bills are actually the third most talented, the third least talented team in the AFC East, that the Dolphins actually have more talent than the Bills do. The Bills have Josh Allen, and that's great, but you don't have a Garrett Wilson or a Breece Hall. You don't have a Tyreek Hill or a Jalen Waddle. Just talking about offensive skill position weapons, you might have a good offensive line. You might have a good offensive line. Defensively, you're already banged up. Your linebackers are not what you want them to be. Matt Milano would be nice. We'll see what Dorian Williams is. Safety, you don't have Poyer and Hyde anymore. Your pass rush,
Your fingers crossed.
Your fingers are crossed that Rousseau has a season, right? So I would listen to that argument that the Bills are actually the third most talented team in the division, that the Jets and the Dolphins are actually, on paper, more talented. Now, on paper, it doesn't matter. You play the game, and the Bills are probably a better coached team, right?
They're the better coach, the better quarterback. Let it ride from there, and it's going to be this bumpy ride. I said 10-7. I mean, gosh, do I tick it down a little bit to 9-8? 10-7 looks really Master Strokian at this point, right?
Yeah. My issue with the Bills is when you have as much dead cap as they are carrying, I believe it's very hard to field a truly competitive team in the NFL. Now, you can say this is a Bills team that has been competitive. This is a Bills team that doesn't get blown out. This is a Bills team that is well coached. This is a Bills team that has Josh Allen. Yes, 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 and yes, but you still are void of talent in some key situations. Talent that you had last year that you don't have this year. You're carrying all that dead cap money, and you're keeping your fingers crossed, hoping that guys who haven't done it before will step up and do something great that they haven't been able to do in the past. You need Rousseau to take that next step. You need Ed Oliver to be even better than he was last year. You need James Cook to hold on to the football.
You need guys you're not expecting, meaning Dorian Williams or one of these safeties or
Taylor Rapp, right?
Right. You have to have guys that exceed expectation. But I don't think the gap is all that great between these two teams. You can argue Miami, Buffalo, the Jets. Ultimately, it'll come down to the month of December. You know, we got games tonight here, Danger.
We do. I know. The Bears are playing the Chiefs tonight.
Yeah, Bears are actually favored. I don't know. This used to be week 4 of the preseason. Now it's week 3 here. Like, let's lick a stamp and.
Am I a bad fan for not tuning into that live tonight? I'm not tuning in. I'll watch that when I have time to watch that. But like knowing that the starters aren't playing, I'm kind of like, whatever.
We are carrying the Buffalo Bills and Carolina Panthers Saturday here on the Fan, Rochester.
But listen, anyways.
Like, if you say I'm not watching that, I'm not going to question your Bills fandom.
No judgment.
No, okay. No. We all lead busy lives. Hey, if you want to, you want to do something else with the family, and you just flick on the radio. Oh, okay,
yeah. Here's where I'm at with the preseason. A game, maybe 2. But if it's not your brand of vodka, why force yourself? Like, it's not good football.
Well, how about this idea? And I saw this. An article, forgive me for not knowing the writer, but Yahoo. Discussion in college football. It seems like they're missing a big opportunity because, hey, this week, you don't want part preseason football. You get week 0. We've got the doubling game coming up. It's Georgia Tech and Florida State. And since you love Florida State, but your brother-in-law disagrees, but I digress.
You know, we didn't get into that. I forgot about that. Since the last time we spoke, we had no show Monday, or you were here Monday.
I was here Monday.
No show Tuesday. You know, at some point this afternoon, I have to explain to you, our regulars, the kind of character that Gene Battaglia has. It's just unnerving. It really is troubling. It is misfit behavior.
It's not misfit.
It is misfit behavior.
It was a little bit of an icebreaker.
You are an S-stirrer, my friend. And unnecessary. Trying to divide my peaceful and harmonious family? How dare you, sir? We'll get into that. I forgot about this. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm not a Florida State fan. When I was a kid, that was the school I always thought would be cool to go to. If I go to college, I'll go to Florida State.
How many championships have you won?
3 straight. We got 3 rings, yeah.
Okay.
In college football, 25.
You didn't do Syracuse. You didn't do.
Because I wanted to win.
Penn State.
The first question it asks you, and if you have college football 25, you know this to be true. Gene does not, so he doesn't understand. The first question it asks you when you boot up the game, what is your favorite team? What was my answer?
You said Florida State.
No, I said Penn State.
Oh.
I said Penn State. So when you log in to the game, everything is Penn State. We are, and there's the Lion doing twirly whirls and all kinds of great stuff. Like all of the detail that you come to expect from a college football game is in the game, and it's all Penn State themed. And then when you go into your game mode, you could be like, okay, I want to play a dynasty mode. And then you could pick a team, any team that you want. I could play as the University of Buffalo if I want to. You can play as any team in Division I that you want to play as. I chose Florida State because when I was a kid, I thought it was a cool school. I wanted to go there.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll go back to the opportunity that's being missed by college football.
Yes.
If you forget week 0, what if this was actually week 1? Do you want to watch crappy NFL preseason football or college football? And this would matter. And the discussion is danger. Well, with the college football playoff, why not pull everything ahead? And the one thing people are wondering is, well, you pull everything ahead, and, well, the tradition of having Michigan, Ohio State on Thanksgiving weekend, that would be ruined if you're pulling it ahead 1 week. But I think for the betterment of the game, can you imagine what the world would be like? College football, that's what we would be talking about this week if we had real action here to discuss.
I want to live with the format this season. Let's see what this season looks like, because it's going to be brand new, right? When we get to the end of the season and the expanded playoff and everything that goes with it, I think it's going to be fantastic, but I want to live with it before I say, yeah, we should move it up. Because how fatigued are we going to be with college football during playoff chases in the NFL? And there's going to be conflicting interests, right? Like I am going to be very interested in seeing how I, as a sports fan, take in both the NFL and college football down the stretch. And maybe it is a smart thing to bump everything up by a week, and we would have games this weekend.
Right.
That would be fun.
All right, if you are one of the key decision makers in the sport, meaning a television partner, wouldn't you want to get eyeballs this weekend as opposed to going up head-to-head against the NFL?
But would you get eyeballs on a Week 0 matchup in Dublin, Ireland? Like, how is that game going to draw?
Well, that's just one game. All I'm saying, Danger, is, like, forget Week 0. Poof, it's gone.
Just start the season early.
Start the season. Everybody goes this weekend.
Right. Yeah, and scheduling, like, premier matchups early in the season would be critical, right? Like,
yeah, and also, like, this has changed over the last 20 years. It used to be you show up right before Labor Day, a lot of schools, and you're like, the calendar in many colleges has changed where everybody's back to school.
They're there now.
They're there now.
Exactly right. Well,
I'm right about a lot of things.
we do have preseason football tonight. We can get into that. And if we're going to talk about football, one of our favorites is joining us next from Football Guys. We'll talk some fantasy football with the great Sigmund Bloom next on The Fan Rochester.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Technically today, the last day of training camp for the Buffalo Bills. Week 1 against Arizona coming up. Head coach Sean McDermott says the only player that has been ruled out for Week 1 is linebacker Matt Milano. McDermott on taking another step.
Again, I want to see us take another step this week, and it's unfortunately I wish I could see that in game live action, right? So unfortunately for the first group it won't happen, but it also presents an opportunity for us to strike with some of these young guys who are going to get some valuable time this weekend.
We'll talk some Bills football next hour with Thad Brown from News 8 here in the Sports Bar. Bills in Carolina, 1 o'clock on Saturday. Our pregame coverage here on The Fan will begin at 11 a.m. Aaron Judge with another homer. 48 now in the season. Giancarlo Stanton has also homered. 5-0 the Yankees lead Cleveland. They're in the 8th. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader. The Fan Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome back into the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia, glad you're with us as we prepare for the final weekend of the preseason. Fantasy football continues to just kind of overtake our minds. We're ready for the roller coaster ride of an NFL season, and to embark on this journey, one of our favorites from Football Guys, Sigmund Bloom, joining us now in the Sports Bar. Sig, it's like you like to call it drinking water from a fire hose season. How you been holding up, buddy?
Yeah. Good. And really, the fire hose isn't as strong. The teams are keeping a lot of things under wraps. I think teams are protecting players more from injury in the preseason, maybe not showing as much. But there's still plenty for us to obsess over. But as you said, it's getting to the point when we have to turn in our final answers on our test and get graded.
Sig, let's start off with some of the rookie quarterbacks here, because certainly we think we're going to see some good things out of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels. We've got Bo Nix in Denver. Who knows what's going to happen in New England? In terms of maybe a QB2 or a QB1, which of these guys would you feel comfortable with?
I'm comfortable with Daniels as my QB1. You can get him anywhere, 6th, 7th quarterback if you want to reach and make sure you get him. He's still there as the 10th, 11th, 12th quarterback in some drafts. We saw with Justin Fields that a running quarterback can be one of the worst passers in the league and still be somebody you want in your fantasy lineup every week. And Jaden Daniels will be a better passer than Justin Fields from day one. So that's an easy one. But Bo Nix is also interesting because he's going to probably get to run a lot. He's going to probably be in some situations in the second half and desperate double-digit deficits with this team still basically rebuilding, and he's the cheapest. He's going to be available maybe at the end of your draft. Certainly if you're doing super flex leagues, 2-quarterback leagues, he's a great bargain.
What about the wide receivers that have held out through training camp, Sigmund? We're always worried about them returning to action at some point, and the soft tissue injuries that, always seem to inevitably rear their ugly heads. I mean, how comfortable are you with the selections of CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Brendan Ayuk, knowing that they haven't seen any time this preseason?
I think that Lamb, you still take the plunge because at 1 or 2, because it's just so absurd for the Cowboys to not sign him. He's actually earned it, and I think that this is one that's going to get done right before the season. And he was so far ahead of the pack after the Cowboys' bye-week adjustments in Week 7 last year that there's reward to balance out that extra risk. Chase is a little tougher. He hasn't put it together really since his rookie year, and you're looking at guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe like Bijan Robinson, maybe like A.J. Brown. There are some other players that you may say, well, I don't need to take the risk on Jamar Chase, and maybe you look to T. Higgins as a pivot there, as he has been there working with Joe Burrow all summer, and Chase hasn't been. And that's one I think that does have some potential to go into the season. And then with Ayuk, he's priced about right in the 3rd round. I'm looking at Malik Neighbors. I'm looking at Mike Evans. I'm looking at Devontae Smith. These are some wide receivers I would take in the 3rd round over Ayuk. It isn't because of the holdout, but the holdout certainly doesn't help the case.
Are you still treating Ayuk as if he will be a 49er?
Yeah. I think you have to at this point because if we are to believe what we've heard, that the trade is agreeable to both sides, compensation-wise, that the contract with the Steelers is agreeable to Ayuk, then the fact that the 49ers have not just executed that trade, they're the ones in control here. And if they had clarity that they were not going to be able to get something done with Ayuk, they could do that. Now, they may still just keep him on his fifth-year option, and then it's up to Ayuk how he wants to proceed. I would imagine he shows up and plays. But when it comes to guys like George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, George Pickens, I would draft them as if Ayuk's going to stay a 49er.
Reaction to the news from today: Dotson going from Washington to Philadelphia. Right. They have a lot there in Philadelphia. How much of it all does that go down? Does Dotson go down your board, Sig?
He didn't have far to go down already. Once we'd heard Washington say they didn't have clarity, you have a new regime, and he can't stand out from the pack as the number 2 wide receiver there. So I think this is kind of a big yawn, or at the very least confirmation that just Jahan Dotson, the league didn't think much of him, Washington didn't think much of him, two different, another regime that did not draft him. Philadelphia didn't think much of, they didn't have much at number 3 wide receiver. They already showed last year they'll trade mid-round picks when they got DeAndre Swift to do a short-term fix at a position. So they needed that, but I think it's just mostly confirmation that Jahan Dotson probably isn't going to amount too much.
Sigmund Bloom, football guys, stopping by the sports bar to talk some fantasy football as we prepare for your drafts perhaps this weekend or as we get closer to kickoff. Sig, we barely got to see J.J. McCarthy this preseason before the knee injury, and now it's Sam Darnold time. And bring it up because, you know what, Justin Jefferson is one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in the league, but we don't know what kind of output we're going to see from him with Sam Darnold throwing him the ball. But you could also look at this as Sam Darnold's in a situation now that he's never been in, with a good offensive line, a head coach that can scheme receivers open. So I guess the Vikings offense in general, what's your thought on how this looks with Darnold behind center?
Better than the expectations. Darnold has been with the Jets. He's been with the Panthers. These are organizations that we are associating with quarterback development these days. San Francisco, we didn't get a chance to see what he could do over the long term, but this is an organization with a high sense of structure in their offense. They saw value in him. Darnold, Kevin O'Connell saw value in him as a quarterback that can play within structure. So there's no reason he can't do a Baker Mayfield kind of maneuver here, rehabilitate his stock, look at himself as a starter. The league will look at him that way. But from a fantasy standpoint, we saw with Nick Mullins, this offense can produce numbers. So I think it can produce numbers, again, in those 2 quarterback superflex leagues. Darnold is basically free. I think everyone maybe has written him off before it is appropriate.
Sigmund, you got to imagine what it was like here in Western New York on draft night, that the Buffalo Bills, a team that they can't get by in the postseason, did a trade with Kansas City, and Kansas City takes a wide receiver. And we have this fear that Xavier Worthy is going to be torturing us here in Western New York, putting up numbers in Kansas City. As far as the Chiefs' offense, like, how much would you put into the rookie here? Because you would definitely think he's going to be a big part of this offense.
Absolutely. And what's really, and I don't want to fuel the nightmares of Buffalo fans, but this is a team that won the Super Bowl and looks like they're going to be on a revenge tour offensively because they were frustrated, flustered, contained. Now, even without Marquise Brown healthy to start the season, Xavier Worthy and that speed is going to be something that, defenses can continue to challenge Patrick Mahomes to take what they give them, but Worthy can still be fast enough to nullify that approach. And for Buffalo fans, it is kind of scary to still be thinking about another team. What did Kansas City do? They won the Super Bowl, and they're going hyper-aggressive to address their flaws on offense. The Bills doubled down on let's be smart, let's be safe, let's spread it around, horizontal attack, especially with Curtis Samuel battling turf toe. So you can see what these teams did when they looked in the mirror and assessed themselves this offseason.
Let's talk about that a little bit more since we're talking about the Bills. Obviously, moving on from Diggs, I'm curious as to what you think he could do in Houston, but more specifically with Buffalo, is there somebody that picks up that slack? Gene believes that Khalil Shakir is going to have the breakout year. I believe that Dalton Kincaid will actually lead the team in receptions and receiving yards. Where do you come down on the Bills' offense, and where do you come down on what Diggs means now to Houston?
I think you're going to continue to see Diggs decline in terms of his numbers and his effectiveness. I understand why the Texans did that, to send a message to the team that this is a Super Bowl window year for the Texans. But it wouldn't scare me off of Nico Collins in the second or Tank Dell in the fourth. And I'm probably staying away from Diggs where he's going in drafts. On the Bills side, I do think that the Curtis Samuel injury is consequential, and it could narrow the target tree. So, you're more interested in Dalton Kincaid. Certainly you're interested in Khalil Shakir as the one receiver on this roster that has actually played with Josh Allen, and Josh Allen showed a lot of trust in him, and he's just getting better. So I think Shakir is the wide receiver that you want to target here. And Keon Coleman, I think maybe his time will come in the future, but he should not have been going ahead of Shakir in drafts like he has been all summer.
James Cook last year, a dichotomy, Sig, because there was times you saw, hey, I really like this, and at the worst times he would come up with drops, and we saw actually some of this in person at training camp. So your thoughts on Ray Davis, a guy who comes in, like most running backs, ready for this league. How much does Davis cut into Cook's production this year?
More than certainly Latavius Murray and Ty Johnson did last year. And on paper, Cooks was, in point per reception leads, the number 5 running back after Joe Brady took over. This more conservative offense certainly should benefit him. But enter Ray Davis, really good 3-down running back. And I know Joe Biscaglia, writing at the Athletic, said that they're more of a 2A and a 2B for now. So I think that Ray Davis, it may be a player that takes some patience, and James Cook will wear out your patience. And then the part of your fantasy draft, he's going the 5th round. That's where you can get Xavier Worthy. That's where you could get Josh Jacobs or Joe Mixon or Kenneth Walker, a lot of people like him under a new coaching staff. So I just think Cook is not a compelling option because of some of those inconsistency issues and the addition of the rookie.
Sigmund, we know you're a Steelers guy. We got to get your take on what's going on with Pittsburgh and whether or not they're going to let Russ cook. Arthur Smith is the offensive coordinator. I mean, we need a good rant from you here, Sig. How are you feeling about the Steelers going into the season?
I mean, it is going to be a rant, but I think it has to be Justin Fields. Well, because all roads, we can change the offensive coordinator, we can change the quarterback. It does seem like all roads will lead back to offensive frustration for this team. At least with Justin Fields, there's an added running dimension and a chance to make a play when you need one, a la Cordell Stewart, because I think that Russell Wilson at this point he's not just in the back 9 of his career. He's probably walking up the 18th fairway right now. And I do think it's telling that Mike Tomlin, in his old school ways, had everybody hit the blocking sled on the first day of camp, and Russell Wilson hurt his calf just hitting the sled. So what does that tell you about where he's at physically? Because that was what his calling card was extending plays. I don't think that he has that mobility anymore. I think even if they put Russell Wilson out there, they're going to be forced to put Justin Fields out there. But that doesn't mean that Fields is going to be improved. It does mean that he could have fantasy value if you're patient and hold him on your bench.
Yeah, like many fantasy players, I got frustrated with Atlanta talking about the new offensive coordinator for Pittsburgh. With Arthur Smith gone in Atlanta, does that actually improve the picture for your Bijan Robinson, your Kyle Pitts at all, or will it be more of the same there? How do you view Atlanta?
Well, along with the change in offensive philosophy, the change in the quarterback is going to be important here. Kirk Cousins knows that Zach Robinson, offense in and out, is Robinson's a Sean McVay disciple. So this is going to be a seamless transition. They have a good offensive line. We're just going to see how much the quarterback play and the Arthur Smith play calling, although you may ask yourself, if Arthur Smith had a quarterback, would he have needed to get so cute with the play calling? Because we saw him with Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown back in Tennessee not frustrate fantasy players. So I think Drake London in the 2nd round, Kyle Pitts in the 5th round, 6th round, and even Darnell Mooney late, who's going to be 2 years clear of a really rough leg injury. And then, of course, you mentioned Bijan Robinson. And I think if you draw the 5th, 6th, 7th pick in your draft, you're weighing Robinson against Jamar Chase, against Amon-Ra St. Brown. Maybe Justin Jefferson could fall there if people are skeptical about Sam Darnold. That's the choice you have, and I understand if you take Robinson.
Sig, every year we go through the exercise of identifying offenses that we need to have a share of. We've talked about some of them already in Kansas City, and I'm curious if there are some that we haven't discussed yet. Like I feel like the Jets are an offense that you probably want to grab a share of, but we still know that's Nathaniel Hackett's offense, even and Aaron Rodgers being there. What does that all mean for you, and what other offenses do we have to leave our draft with a share of?
The Jets are compelling in so much as they could be greatly improved. I think the Jets, Arizona is another team that we might be sleeping on how improved the offense will be this year. And I think sometimes the right picks in fantasy can just be as simple as picking players in the offenses that outperform expectations. I'm not sure how you can take advantage of that with the Jets, with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson both going in the first round. Maybe Braylon Allen, the rookie running back, who is the clear backup to Hall, is someone you might want to take late. Mike Williams is cleared. He's going to be scaled up in snaps. You might not want to play him until week 4 or 5, but you can get him in the 10th, 11th, 12th round, and if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, you like that. But you mentioned those elite offenses, and I love thinking of fantasy drafting this way, and I have a clear-cut 5, and you mentioned that we know one of them. And what I would run them down as Baltimore. And you can get one of the biggest pieces of Baltimore's offense in the 3rd or 4th round. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers. I think this offense is going to explode this year. Miami, anyone in the backfield, Devin Achane, Raheem Mostert, who everyone's afraid to draft for some reason, falling to the 7th or 8th round, and the rookie Jalen Wright. Jalen Waddle, who finally is back in practice. Tyreek Hill, worthy of the number 3 or maybe even number 2 pick in your draft. Johnny Smith, who's on every one of my teams, I recommend everybody draft him late, even if you take Travis Kelce or an elite tight end early. I would add San Francisco, of course, to that list, who we've talked about. And then Detroit. That's right. Detroit is an elite offense. And the guy I'm really fascinated with right now, other than David Montgomery, who's really cheap, Jameson Williams, Sione Vaki, the safety/running back, is really winning the heart of Dan Campbell and might be a running back injury away with Jahmyr Gibbs already hurt to being a league winner.
Interesting. Last one for me, Sig. It's about the tight end position because, it was always, if you want to pay the freight on Gronk or Kelsey more recently,
right.
Seems like it's changed just a little bit. So if you don't want to pay on Laporta, what are some other options in the mid-round that you could see get a sizable target share?
There's a lot of potential right answers at tight end, okay? Mark Andrews is a one-round discount from Travis Kelce, and he was basically even with Kelce before he got hurt in a lot of people's eyes. Kyle Pitts, I mentioned. I think that Jake Ferguson is underrated. He's another player that after the Cowboys went to that pass-centric offense, really started to come on. They view him as that clear number 1 tight end, and probably with not as much of a sure thing at their number 3 wide receiver right now. And their running game, of course, is not going to do much. But I would go even deeper. There's T.J. Hawkinson, who may not contribute until the second half of the year, but he's free if you have an IR slot in your league. So consider taking him in the second half of your draft. I mentioned Johnny Smith, Zach Ertz. Look, you could wait and take your tight end one as the 20th or 25th pick. It could be Zach Ertz with this Jahan Dotson trade. He's going to catch 9 balls for 41 yards, and that's pretty good in a PPR league in week 1. So there's a lot of options at tight end.
Sig, if you play fantasy football, you're familiar with Football Guys. I want to make sure you have time to talk about all the work that you and the team at Football Guys are doing here as we get ready for another NFL season.
Yeah, we're just around the clock, every format, everything. The last thing you think about before you fall asleep, the first thing you think about when you wake up, if it's fantasy football, then you will fit in at Football Guys. And this is a wonderful time of year because we don't seem so degenerate or out of touch with reality because everybody is thinking about it. But, I like you have a life, we don't. We're going to help you win through your draft, through your waiver wire pickups, through your trades, and most of all, enjoy the ride and have a good time together.
Sigmund Bloom, thank you so much for the time today. We're looking forward to checking it out this weekend here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Sigmund Bloom, who we had a chance to talk to earlier this afternoon, getting ready for fantasy football draft season and redraft leagues. Some of us may be drafting as soon as tonight. So for selfish reasons, I appreciate our conversation with Sigmund Bloom.
And there's certainly some, finger quote here, real football conversation to be had, because there are people that are saying the Bills missed the boat here on Dotson. Not you doing a pick swap like Washington did with Philadelphia today, but can you do better than that? If the Bills have to go out and get some help at that position, I don't know. What would Dotson coming in at this point mean?
Would you? I guess if you were to tell me you could have Jahan Dotson, former first-round pick, at, what is he, 25, 26? Still young.
24.
Oh, my God, even better.
24, yeah.
Versus MVS at age 30, now with a bad neck. I mean,
different skill set altogether, though.
Sure, yes. Yeah. Dotson comes in as, you have Curtis Samuel or Jahan Dotson. Like, I would take Jahan Dotson right now at this stage of his career.
Oh, see, the thing we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. I'm telling you, like they say, Samuel's going to be fine. He could be out there and he could be a shell of himself, and we won't see it.
Right. We haven't seen it yet. We don't know what it looks like in Joe Brady's office. That's what's maddening about trying to predict this season for the Buffalo Bills is there's so much hinging on the potential of this player or the potential of this offense and this offensive coordinator, what it looked like with these players. Like, I'll stop short of saying there's an arrogance there because you have Josh Allen. You have Josh Allen, but you still need talent around Josh Allen.
True, but I think this year more than ever, we didn't see anything out of the offense, which I think we should be fine with, right? My expectation is that a lot of the things that are in the works we won't see until September the 8th.
Right, and preseason is your time to make mistakes. It doesn't matter. You didn't score a touchdown so far this preseason. I'm not going to be here and saying that means something. But you know what? We'll talk to Thad Brown, who joins us next hour. We'll get his take on the Bills preseason, which is now concluded. We'll look ahead to Saturday's finale against the Panthers at Highmark Stadium, and learn a little bit more about this final practice and the health of this team going into Week 1. Feels like a couple of players are trending in the right direction, and others maybe not so much. So Thad will stop by next hour. I've got a handful of tweets from the regulars at the Fan Rochester that we've got to get to. I still have to share my Gene being a social misfit with my family story.
Being a social misfit.
Absolutely.
It was an icebreaker.
Stirring the pot and creating problems in my family. How dare he? We'll get into that and more next. We have time for your calls at 866-4326-585, 8664-FAN.
9BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
And now it's on to the action for the Buffalo Bills today. Last day of training camp out at Orchard Park, week 1 against the Cardinals. Coming up is head coach Sean McDermott today saying the only player so far that's been ruled out for that week 1 game is linebacker Matt Milano. We'll talk to Thad Brown. Get to talk some Bills football coming up later this hour here in the Sports Bar. Bills in Carolina, 1 o'clock on Saturday. Our pregame coverage here on The Fan will begin at 11 a.m. Aaron Judge with home run number 48 on the season. Yankees win 6-0 over Cleveland. The Guardians with just one hit. Garrett Cole getting the win for New York. Cubs leading the Tigers 7-0. They're in the 5th. No score in the 7th between the Cardinals and Brewers. Nationals beat the Rockies 8-3. Rochester Red Wings continuing their series tonight out at Lehigh Valley. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
We're working towards taking another step this week, and really the unique part about it is usually you would take that 4th preseason game. In this case, we're doing it in the 3rd preseason week, so I think that the important piece for us is that we not only stay sharp, but we're focused on taking another step.
We're not coaching. We're not results-based. We've never been results-based here.
Mike Danger.
Dude, everything is results-driven. Every walk of life is. What do you mean you're not results-driven?
Yeah, I think he gets over his skis sometimes.
That's a long way of saying we don't care about stats.
Gene Battaglia.
I think so. Like, if you're doing the right things, it's just kind of the way it is. But if you're doing the right things, and that's what he's saying
Process.
there, it's about the process, right?
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
We'll get a report from the Bills' final practice at training camp. Thad Brown, News 8 sports director, stopping by the Sports Bar here in less than 20 minutes. We welcome you in. We appreciate you listening. 95.7 FM, AM 950, the Odyssey app, your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan, and our viewers on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, on Twitch, twitch.tv/The Fan Rochester if you want to watch the Sports Bar. You can always engage with us on X as well at The Fan Rochester. Just some housekeeping here from last hour. Gino was talking about how my wife, Sandy, is just not a football fan. My first fantasy football draft is tonight, and I'm purposely scheduling it after she's in bed. Like, she doesn't even want anything to do with it, doesn't even want to know that it exists. Just not a fan of football. Chris, one of our regulars in South Central Kentucky, listening in the Odyssey app, reaching out to us at The Fan Rochester on X. My wife was indifferent to football all her life. When we wed, she'd use that 3 hours on a Sunday to nap. Then the strangest thing happened. The Bills drafted Josh Allen, who looked a lot like Chris Pratt, and she was suddenly into football. I see what you're saying there, Chris, but why would my wife's eye stray when she has all of this to look at, Gino?
Chris, I think you're selling your wife short. Your wife was like, why would I want to watch Buffalo Bills? Oh, I don't think it has anything to do with what he looks like. It's a watchable product now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
The drought era Bills were a tough watch.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how all of a sudden, like, you have the Mafia Babes come up and like all these organizations.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that has anything to do with, well, a little bit, I suppose.
East Hilton Brian tweeting at The Fan Rochester, didn't you get engaged on the Jumbotron at a baseball game? Half listening, East Hilton Brian. The story is not that I got engaged at a baseball game. The baseball game was the vehicle to get us to Toronto, the city where I got engaged. And I did not get engaged on the Jumbotron at a baseball game.
You didn't get engaged in the baseball stadium,
Period.
Right?
No,
Yeah, no.
That didn't happen. We were in Toronto for the baseball game. That was our reason to go to Toronto, aside from me knowing I was going to pop the big question.
I do have one follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
Was it before or after the baseball game?
After.
Wow. And she said yes.
She sat through the baseball game.
She sat through the baseball game.
That's correct. She'd already been to a Bills game with me. I remember we went with friends. We were just dating. Bills-Jags. Cold day. This would have been, 2000 maybe? 99, 2000?
So Tom Coughlin's still there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say the Jags won that game, but I'm foggy. My memory's foggy on that one. Tim tweeting us at the Fan Rochester. It's Mike Danger versus Mike Danger. The salary cap is a myth versus with that much dead cap, it's difficult to field a competitive team. You're not wrong.
He's got you there.
Tim,
yeah.
don't get inside my head, man. It's a treacherous place. I just don't like teams that carry as much dead cap. Is the idea that the Bills are second to only the Broncos in dead cap going into this year really bothers me. It really, really bothers me.
It doesn't bother me. I mean, just compared to what else is in the division, I think this is a calculated move because when you come out of this, I know nobody wants to talk about 2025, but let's say none of these wide receiver options. Let's say I was wrong on Shakir, and well, you will have money to go buy something. I mean, if you want to at that point. So, but to be clear, if the Bills wanted to go make a move, there's other things you could do. But then you're becoming the Saints here, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Always chasing your tail.
Now to that guy.
What is wrong here? So can I tell my side of the story here?
Sure, Gene. Tell your side of the story.
Business dinner, Friday night. Okay, so Friday night, we're at the place on Westridge Road, right? The Italian place. Yeah, right.
Of course you're there. 'Cause he's Italian!
Yeah, on the patio, and I see your brother-in-law. And if you listen to the show, you know Danger.
You know my brother-in-law.
You know your brother-in-law.
You know my brother-in-law.
And you know I work with your brother-in-law for, how many years has it been? 15 years now, calling RIT hockey? So
that's correct.
Kind of like one of those, hey, rather than like do a boring meeting, let's go out to dinner. So I'm grateful to Mark Fergelli and the people over at RIT for bringing us to that dinner. It's, you know, that's a good time to kind of, you know, shake the cobwebs out, talk about the upcoming season, and, you know, just get things going here, right? So I mentioned to your brother-in-law, because he loves his Penn State football.
Oh, my God.
To say the least.
Loves it. Obsessed.
I mentioned to him, hey, do you know Danger's got a favorite team in college football, and it's not Penn State? Oh, what?
So
what?
you said it just like that.
I said it like that. What? Yeah, he's won the championships in that video game with Florida State a couple of times. He's a Florida State fan. I left it at that. Little did I know this would cause all this turmoil.
This is family. You're messing with family right now, buddy. You just watch your step, okay?
Okay, what did I get wrong in that?
Don't.
What did I get wrong in that? I can't mention.
Take a deep breath before you turn the ignition over in your car.
Hold on.
Because this is family you're dealing with here. So.
Oh, you're pulling up the text.
Oh, yeah. He texted me. Now, this is Friday night. You're enjoying a fine Italian meal on the west side. I'm schlepping around my yard in my lawn tractor. I'm doing yard work.
On a Friday night.
On a Friday night.
Dude.
Just, I mean, everybody, stand back, ladies. I'm taking. I get a text from my brother-in-law, Penn State fan. Florida State fan? Is this true? I'm not happy. And immediately I know what has happened. Immediately. I'm like, this didn't come out of nowhere. I knew that you had dinner with him. I knew that you guys were together, and I knew that you would bring me into the conversation and break the ice by mentioning, because I told you, we had played college football 25. My brother-in-law never played video games. He's not a video game guy.
But probably you introduced him to this. And
I showed it to him at my daughter's birthday party.
And just imagine,
He loved it. It was great. We had so much fun playing as Penn State, and we were dominant. We had a lot of fun. And so immediately I know where he's going. And so my response after I'm done doing my yard work, not surprising that my big-mouthed social misfit coworker is spreading lies. We're family. When you boot the game up, it asks a question. What is your favorite team? We are. You saw how dominant Penn State was. Playing the game as Florida State provides a little more challenge. Gene must have already hit his quota of big-timing people today, if he's even talking to you. And now we're good. That's it. Done. Diffused. So, Gene, your attempts to drive a wedge in my family have failed. I'm in tight.
Did you not say on these airwaves you grew up following Florida State?
I, as a kid, when I was a teenager, growing up in Minnesota, thought Florida State was cool. I'm like, that's a cool team. Deion Sanders, cool uniform, cool logo. Florida State, Florida. I mean, when you grow up in Minnesota, much like if you grow up in Western New York, you go down to Florida, you're like, oh, this is a different world. I love it down here. I'd never been to Florida. I just thought Florida State was cool. And so I'm like, yeah, I like Florida State. I had the Florida State. You remember the sweatshirts that had the big letters across the top? Florida State with the logo in the center. And,
they were the power back then.
Yeah, they were fun.
They were fun.
They were fun. I knew of Penn State, obviously. I remember guys like Shane Conlon and those teams. I remember Joe Paterno. I remember them playing in big games and not rooting against Penn State, but I didn't live here. I didn't grow up here. So I'd come here and I'm like, oh, there's a lot of Penn State fans here. Who knew?
Okay, so like you're saying, you acknowledge this on the air, and if it's on the air, I think it's on the record. Let me put my Coach Babbage hat on, okay? How could I, Gene, grow here from this experience? Because that was just a throwaway icebreaker comment. Didn't know it would exactly push a big button. It was just, hey, like Danger's a big Florida State fan. He's won a couple times on the video game. Like it was some sort of treasonous comment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well,
really?
I mean, that's his fandom talking. I mean, if you didn't know the kind of fan he is and the kind of loyalty he demands of his fandom, that's just who my brother-in-law is.
I'm trying to put this into my context. It would be like my son. Like, if you can, hey, Kyle, he's won a couple times as the Atlanta Braves there on the MLB The Show. I'd be like, what? I would be upset about that, but that's a rival. Like Florida State and Penn State, it's like...
Or you know what? It's just a video game, and it's fun. Who cares? Like, if I wanted to play as, I don't know, Akron. Play as Akron.
I know a lot of people that have done that. Like I won with Army. Like
that's right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Like who cares? It's fun. It's fun to say I've won 3 straight titles in Dynasty mode as the head coach of the Seminoles. If I did it with Penn State, it would be equally as fun. It doesn't matter. It's all. And if you play as Penn State, yeah, they're good in the game. There's a lot of good teams. I think it actually is more fun to play as Army or as Akron or as a Kennesaw State.
Okay, so you're Coach Babbage and I'm Gene. How do I grow from this experience? What do I need to learn?
Here's what you need to learn. When it comes to my family, keep my name out your mouth. Don't bring me up. Don't drive a wedge. Driving a wedge between me and my family.
This is one of those radio things, folks, that I can't tell. And there's that nervous laughter. Kind of like the woman who was interviewing Aaron Judge. Like, is this for real?
No,
or is it not? I don't know.
I'll play it. I'll play it. But it was very social misfit of you to. It fits. It fits the profile. When we talk about the social misfits of your Mets fandom and your reaction to the Hawk Tua girl throwing out the first pitch, and
I'm not alone in that, by the way.
I know you're not alone on that. I know that sparked massive outrage, and if they missed the postseason, that's your scapegoat. But when I saw it, I'm like, oh, Gene's being a social misfit. He's in a social setting, and he's stirring the pot by bringing this up to my brother-in-law.
It's a dinner on a Friday night where I was just kind of drinking water, and Kimmy was there. She can vouch for it. Kimmy observed the whole thing because she's our reporter, sideline reporter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you were probably having long beers by that point.
I had a couple of lawnmower beers, a few lawnmower beers. So I saw it. I'm like, okay, Gene's causing trouble. Gene's stirring the pot, trying to get me in trouble with my brother-in-law.
We've got that Brown coming up here a little bit. I've got this take, and this is a story in New York here, Danger.
Yeah.
Little League World Series, fun time. Hawaii lost last night. Good run for them. Sunday, that was fun, too. I always kind of like watching that game where you have the 2 big league teams, the Yankees and the Tigers, and you're interacting with the Little League. And, well, there's a team, one of these teams from Staten Island. That's kind of a big deal. And they, big Yankee fans, of course, got to take in the game. And they got to meet a few of the players. The manager of the Staten Island Little League team, not happy with Aaron Judge telling the local paper out there, Bob Laturza is the guy's name, about Aaron Judge, quote, "How about turning around or waving to New York and the kids that think you're a hero, they're the ones who pay your salary." The background here. Meeting with the team beforehand, the meeting with the Staten Island team. Aaron Boone, Jason Dominguez, the Martian, Garrett Cole, okay? A lot. And Judge was meeting with other teams. The Yankees today came out and defended Judge in a statement. It doesn't read like a normal statement. Quote, "Aaron Judge always acts with kindness and respect. The coach could learn a lot from him." That's wow.
Yes, stayed
wow.
out.
Bam.
Yeah.
Danger. We see this with Josh Allen every training camp at Fisher. Allen doesn't want to be the guy who lets the kid down. Honestly, I think kids kind of understand this, okay? If you can kind of meet your hero, great. If not, I know there's a lot of people around. Why can't every adult understand this? Shame on this guy.
I think this coach is a guy who, at least he sounds like a guy who wishes he could do what a fraction of what Aaron Judge could do. That when you hear we pay your salary, whenever I hear them, I'm like, oh my God, you are unhinged. Just disconnected.
Yeah, and to hear the Yankees put out a statement like that, the coach could learn a lot from Aaron Judge.
Right, like Judge is probably thinking, like, I didn't do anything wrong. I did what I was supposed to do, and you're still not happy with that? I don't know what else I can do. I mean, these are professional athletes. They are in high demand. Everywhere they go, they're getting hounded. Everywhere they go, they're getting hounded.
Yeah, and to expect Aaron Judge, as he's walking up to the plate, to give high fives and run around, he's there to compete. He's there to try to win a game. That's
Correct.
his job.
That's right. That's right. I love the Yankees' response to that, and I don't like hearing anybody say, well, we are the ones that pay your salary. Shouldn't you? What? Yeah. I mean, if it bothers you that much, stop watching. If it bothers you that much, go be a Mets fan. Don't be a Yankees fan.
Or you could have said, it was great to meet Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole and Jason Dominguez, and thank you so much.
Aaron
Yankees.
Boone. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, Aaron Boone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a great opportunity as well. And you're right about the Bills and about training camp. I mean, all of these guys do their best to sign and to stick around for as long as they can, and they provide just an unbelievable amount of thrills for the kids that are there. That's what it's all about. That's what it should be about. But I also know that it can't be that way every day, all the time. And to what end? I mean, if you run into your favorite player in a public setting and you hound them, I don't know that they can be gracious, but I don't know they need to stop the world to try and that's not even what we're talking about here. That's not even the same example. I'm just saying, like, the person who goes up to the athlete or the famous figure in a public setting expecting something out of that is misguided to me.
Yeah, the story we always come back to is what happened. Well, it used to be like right across the street from us. Oh my gosh, Derek Jeter is here for his friend's bachelor party. Why isn't he coming down to sign autographs? Because he's not here for you. He's on his own time.
And he doesn't need to sign.
No.
You realize that guy makes money every time he picks up a pen and signs an autograph. He doesn't need to sign an autograph for you. That's not why he's here. Right. It's his time.
We pay your salary.
No, for crying out loud. The worst. I know that fantasy football season is upon us. We had a great conversation with Sigmund Bloom of Football Guys last hour. And maybe during happy hour here, we could talk a little bit about this punishment that Maggie and Perloff have.
This seems to be like the thing. It's kind of taken off. Like, not only winning the championship's one thing, but now you almost are like has to have a punishment for the last. And what could you do? And this one's interesting what they're going to do, but I don't know if it's feasible.
You have some questions.
The Waffle House Challenge, it's called.
Okay.
Which we can't relate to, seeing we don't have a Waffle House.
Well, we have other delectables that we can tie into this punishment and kind of relate to. We'll get to that here during happy hour. First, let's get to Thad Brown, News 8 sports director. Final day of Buffalo Bills practice at training camp, officially over now with the preseason finale coming up on Saturday afternoon. We'll get his thoughts on camp overall, the health of the team, and what we can expect from Saturday's matchup against the Panthers. Thad Brown next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Looking for better ways to keep your pool sparkling clean with less effort? Well, thanks to BioGarden Ace Swim and Leisure, you have great new options. Bio Silk Guard Complete creates luxuriously soft water that's longer than basic chlorine and adds an extra layer of algae protection. Bio Algae Complete provides broad spectrum control of pesky green mustard and black algae. Kills it in just 24 hours. Get details at aceswim.com. Ace Swim and Leisure, Childlight Avenue and Ridge Road, Webster.
Odyssey has sports for every fan.
app to listen to games, podcasts, and radio stations like The Fan Rochester for free. Odyssey, for everything Bills, Sabres, and Amherst. Follow The Fan Rochester in the Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Technically, today the last day of training camp for the Buffalo Bills. Week 1 against Arizona, of course, coming up. Sean McDermott today saying the only player that's been ruled out for that Week 1 game is linebacker Matt Milano. McDermott on this week's last evaluation.
Again, I want to see us take another step this week, and it's unfortunately I wish I could see that in game live action, right? So unfortunately for the first group it won't happen, but it also presents an opportunity for us to strike with some of these young guys who are going to get some valuable time this weekend.
We'll talk to Thad Brown, News 8, coming up next here in the Sports Bar. Bills in Carolina, 1 o'clock Saturday. Our pregame coverage here on The Fan will begin at 11 a.m. Aaron Judge, another homer today, number 48 now. Yankees win 6-0. Cleveland with just one hit in this game. Garrett Cole gets the W. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
Training Camp 2024 officially in the books. Final practice today. Preseason finale coming up on Saturday. Thad Brown, News 8 sports director, joining us now. They didn't escape training camp completely unscathed, Thad, but I guess when you consider that your starting quarterback is still healthy and several key playmakers are still healthy. Overall, training camp for the Bills, what's your takeaway heading into the preseason finale here coming up on Saturday?
Probably mediocre. I mean, the injury situation in general, with all the guys that have been banged up lately, that's not bad because it seems like most of those guys are going to have a good chance to play Week 1. Now, obviously, the whole goal of the preseason is to get through without any major issues, and the Bills suffered one with Matt Milano, so that's a big, big negative for the preseason. But when it comes to on-field stuff, I saw some things I liked. You know, defensively, I was impressed with Christian Benford this preseason. He's been just fantastic, practice in, practice out. I've seen impact from Von Miller. I think he could be more of a factor than, maybe even people optimistically forecasted going into training camp. I think the receiver situation is okay. I'm a little concerned with the way Keon has been locked down in a lot of situations, but Dalton Kincaid seems like he's 7'11". He's open all the time. So I think overall it's been okay. With obviously the only item of legitimate impact on the regular season is that Milano injury.
Yeah, and the guy taking over from Matt Milano, Dorian Williams. And the way I kind of view Dorian Williams is there's a lot of raw talent there, but how far does he have to go to even get close to the level that Milano was? Seems like maybe some of the nuances of the game needs to kind of learn on the flyer. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think first of all, we got to start by lowering the bar down to the Terrell Bernard level, which is, still pretty good, but not anywhere close to Matt Milano, because Milano might be the best linebacker in the league, and expecting a second-year player who looks clearly in over his head as a rookie to get there is just not going to happen. But to getting to the level of a passable, competent, not causing you problems, there's still a ways to go for that for Dorian Williams too, because the way he played was, it's like his hair was on fire. He would be 100 miles an hour in one direction. The problem was if he picked the wrong direction, he'd be so far out of the play, it would be a big, big problem. So getting him a little more under control, understanding the defense, where he's supposed to be, that would be a fantastic improvement for him, let alone being able to make plays. And like you said, the athletic ability has never been in question with him. He can do all that stuff. It's just about, pointing him in the right direction more often.
So, Thad, since we're talking about linebackers, the big story to come out of Pittsburgh was the play of Joe Andreessen. I mean, he was the best player on the field while he was out there. And the preseason finale here, probably another opportunity for him to shine. What's your outlook for this guy? Is he a practice squad guy? Does he have a chance of making the final 53? I mean, when you consider that there's injuries at the position, could you do worse than the undrafted free agent from the University of Buffalo?
It's a great question with the 53. I think he's got a real good look at the practice squad. I think that there needs to be another solid preseason game to really secure his spot on some sort of roster with the team. Because in training camp, Andreessen was fine. He wasn't spectacular, but he pretty much sat on the third team and wasn't noticeable. And then he had a decent game against the Bears, and then obviously the bananas game against the Steelers. But to your point, the Bills went into this camp with a good amount of linebacker depth. You had the top two guys. You had, Balen Spector and Dorian Williams, guys who played a little bit, who are, young with upside. You had Nick Morrow and Deion Jones, who are veterans in the NFL, who you'd think if you had to, you could play either one of them. Now, Deion Jones has been a non-factor. Morrow has been injured. Spector has been injured. And obviously Milano's out. So all of a sudden, the door is wide open for someone like Andreessen to potentially land a spot. I'll tell you this. If he repeats what he did against Pittsburgh in the Carolina game on Saturday, then I think there's a pretty darn good chance he at least starts the season, on the 53. We'll see where the Bills want to go injury-wise, and if Dorian Williams, turns out to be a guy that can't hack it as a starter, maybe they add somebody else. But, like I said, there's a chance here, and I think I would bet on him at the very least being on the practice squad as opposed to being completely off the roster by the end of next week.
Thad Brown from News 8, our guest here in the Sports Bar. One other thing from that game against Pittsburgh there. The guy is still 24, Thad. Greg Rousseau tossing aside a right tackle and Broderick Jones in making the sack, two of them, in fact, there. What is the ceiling, would you say, for Greg Rousseau this year? Can he get to a point where, hey, you're an opposing offense, we really need to kind of account for this guy here?
I think when you're in year 4, it is really hard to have that big of a jump because Greg Rousseau years 1, 2, and 3 has been a guy who's been competent, really good run defender, will threaten at times, but more often not than threatening. And for him to turn into exactly what you'd say, which I think is a great way to put it, a guy that other teams really have to worry about, I think would still take a sizable jump. We've seen it from Rousseau, like I said, played occasionally. Like my book on him last year was Rousseau would have 1 or 2 series where he'd look really good and then just not be relevant the rest of the game. It may not be a factor of does he have the ceiling to get there. It's and Bobby Babbitt said this the other day and talking about Joe Andreessen, but it'll apply here. The thing about a pro is playing a certain way is consistency, playing that way all the time. If we get more of that 2 or 3 great plays we saw against the Steelers from Rousseau, that to me is the question. Because he can do, he can be an edge rusher that causes problems here and there. It's doing it more often. Now, I've never seen him, just be as physically dominant as he was against the Steelers. And Broderick Jones has his own problems, which, doesn't surprise, I think, many Steelers fans. So that is a good sign. But it's not can Rousseau do it. It's going to do it more often.
When we try to predict what the final 53-man roster looks like here coming up on Tuesday afternoon, Thad, do we get the sense that there could be some roster gymnastics with IR, given some of these injuries? We heard McDermott today say that things are kind of moving in the right direction for some of these players. What's your take on the health of the Bills here heading to the preseason finale and ultimately heading into week 1 here where they can maybe snag a roster spot or two if they utilize IR?
So one thing to keep in mind now, and I think you're kind of referring to this, is that you can put 2 guys on IR before the season starts without having them occupy a roster spot. The way it used to be was you cut to 53, and even if there's a guy that's hurt, you can't put him on IR, but you put anybody on IR before that cut down, he's gone for the year. Now, just on cut down day, so it doesn't apply to anybody who's gone on IR prior to that, you can put 2 guys on IR that won't count against the 53. I don't think there's enough injury issues. Like if you think about who could potentially be on IR other than, Matt Milano, that would count for that. Maybe Curtis Samuel. I mean, Mike Edwards was in team drills today, so I don't think he's a candidate. Maybe Cole Bishop. I can't think of a third guy who I think would for sure make the team who they would need to use IR for. So I don't think you're going to have to mess around too much.
What about MVS in the neck?
The neck injury to me, although he was in discomfort, clearly on the field Saturday night. That to me would be the kind of thing. If it was going to be serious, I think we would have known it. I think Sean McDermott would have talked about that before. So I don't think there's enough guys where they need to mess around. I think the 53 that they're going to want to have, even if 1 or 2 guys go on IR to start the year, I think will be the guys they want. They won't have to do anything weird.
Yeah, Trubisky, backup quarterback. And I know there's some people, Thad, that would say, oh, if Josh Allen goes down, season's over anyways. I do think the second quarterback is important in this team because, say there is a stretch of a month or whatever, you need a guiding hand. So a 2-part question here. Trubisky, do we know anything about the extent of that? And part 2 here, I wasn't impressed. I don't know. Could the Bills actually be looking for other options here to begin the season for a backup quarterback?
So for the injury part of it, Sean McDermott said today that there's no one they've ruled out for week one other than Milano. So I'm assuming Trubisky counts for that. So that would mean there has to be some level of optimism he'll be good to go. As for the other part, last year Kyle Allen looked terrible in preseason, and they went with him all year. So I think there's a precedent already for we're not going to get overly bent out of shape after 2 or 3 bad quarters. In addition, Trubisky actually had a pretty good camp. I was impressed, and then I was someone who was incredibly skeptical about bringing him on as a backup quarterback coming in. So if the Bills want to say, hey, it's just, 1 or 2 bad preseason games, or, what do you have, like 35 throws, something like that so far, to where you can argue it's not a big enough sample size, they do have evidence in practice of Trubisky looking good to where they can say we don't need to find somebody else. So I think no matter, I know a lot of fans are, want to go that route. I would be incredibly surprised if they go out and find a different backup quarterback sometime before week 1.
With that, what do you say to the fan who today gets the news of Jahan Dotson going to the Eagles and says, well, the Bills should have been on that? I mean, you could have Jahan Dotson instead of a Marquez Valdez-Scantling or Mac Hall. Are the Bills going to be shopping here as teams look to cut down? Are there still moves to be made as the season approaches?
Possibly. I'm still not thrilled with the interior offensive line depth. I don't know if the Bills agree with that, but that would be a place that I personally would look at. I think going into camp corner was a question, but I think both Kyrie Elam and Jamarcus Ingram, frankly, have played well enough to secure that. Again, linebacker is a huge issue. I mean, if Joe Andreessen does not look up to the part on Sunday, and you're thinking all the Bills have are, Dorian, Terrell Bernard, and then, Balin Spector maybe after that, that would be a spot they'd attack. As for receiver, first of all, I'm not a huge Jahan Dotson fan. If the Bills had brought him in, my reaction would have been great. Another mid guy. I mean, they've got 4 of them already. I mean, what are you doing there? So unless they want to work their way into the Brandon Ayuk discussion or someone of that caliber, they're not finding an impact guy at receiver at this point. What they've got is what they're going with, and they're going to have to find a way to make it work. And they've been telling us all offseason, they have a lot of options, a lot of different things. We're going to move the ball around. We don't need a number one. Well, put your money where your mouth is. Let's see it on the field in games that count.
Yeah, Thad, an ongoing storyline here. And again, in the games, hey, it's just been fine. In practice, following you and other reporters, Tyler Bass, where is this kind of story going? What is your level of concern right now for the Bills kicker?
It's moderate. It looked ugly yesterday. I mean, he missed 3 of his first 4. And there was a part of me watching him kick thinking, please make a couple of these. I don't want to see someone get walked off the field in the middle of a practice. Not that I thought that was really going to happen, but it felt that bad for a moment. He's been good in the preseason, and look, we always say in preseason, and this goes for practice and games, you never know what guys are working on. Maybe he's got a new approach or a new step or something that he's working in practice, and that's why he's missed a bunch. But it hasn't looked good. And, the lack of success is certainly somewhat alarming. I don't think the Bills move off of him anytime soon. This is not going to be a situation where they're grabbing another kicker, week 2 or 3. But, he ended last year with a big miss. He started this year very shaky, at least in practice. And even, look, the field goals on the field in the preseason, you've got four bunnies and a 48-yarder. So it's not like he's got an extensive list of preseason successes to where you can – plant your flag next to that and say we're good at kicker. But I do think this is another guy, like Mitch Trubisky, where it would take a lot more than what we've seen to get the Bills to move off of him.
Is there a concern that through 2 games of the preseason the Bills have yet to find the end zone, or is it just, hey, it's the preseason, it doesn't matter, and they're going to figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, this goes for any team. It's hey, it's the preseason, especially a team with Josh Allen at quarterback and who's only used Josh Allen for 1 of those 8 quarters so far. And the thing, people have asked me about this a lot. I'll go back to there was a Rex Ryan Jets team who looked just terrible. I think it was a Mark Sanchez team in the preseason. And they did not score a single touchdown, not first, second, third team, the whole preseason. And they caught that. I remember this because the Bills caught them week 1. And I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be an easy win for the Bills. And then the Jets went out and put 40 on them, and that was Mark bleeping Sanchez.
Yeah.
So Josh Allen will figure it out. Doesn't mean the Bills offense is going to be great, but scoring 0 touchdowns in the preseason is zero concern.
Thad, I think Saturday will be one of these days that 10 years from now we'll look back and maybe laugh. Like, hey, you remember that game where the Bills were quarterbacked by Ben DiNucci and Anthony Brown? The same can't be said on the other side. Like, reasons to kind of tune in. Bryce Young getting his first start, and I'm just wondering what direction this would go in, because I could see Carolina, hey, we haven't gotten many work. Let's give them a little confidence here. But I'm just wondering that what if it goes wrong? What if he's picked off by a backup like Jamarcus Ingram or whatever it is coming up Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Panthers have much more to lose on Saturday than the Bills do for that reason. I was never thrilled with Bryce Young as a number 1 overall pick. I think there's a lot to question about his athletic ability. I just, when it was him and C.J. Stroud, I always wondered why do you trade up and spend all those picks on the little guy? But I think they've got a new coaching staff, or I know they do, but I think they've got a coaching staff that knows what they're doing offensively. And look, at the end of the day, if you're a Panthers fan, you got to trust that they can figure it all out. With the Bills not playing starters, that should be a soft landing spot for the Panthers. We will see. I know I like to put a little money down on the Bills in the preseason because they tend to win games no matter what string they play, and I don't see any reason, even with the Panthers playing starters, to worry about that on Saturday.
So, Thad, as we get closer to week 1 and you'll hear more and more noise and more people making their predictions for the regular season, I'm not going to ask you right now, put you on the spot and say, hey, what do you think the Bills are going to do this season record-wise? But are you as down on the Bills as it feels like a lot of the national media and people that are kind of viewing this from the outside looking in are? Are you high on a team like the Dolphins or the Jets in the AFC East, or is it still the Bills and everybody else because you have Josh Allen, you have the best quarterback and the best coach in the division?
Yeah, I'm a little combination of that. I'm probably on the downside, but not. I see a lot of people, easily picking Dolphins or Jets to win the division, and I'm not there. I still think the Bills are the division favorite and should be. I really think the whole division is going to be down. I think that there will be only one playoff team from the AFC East this year, and it wouldn't surprise me if the division winner was 10-7. But I don't see the Bills as another 12 or 13 win team. It's possible if things hit, whether it be the pass rush or the receiving core or both. But I don't see the Bills as a top flight, shoe-in Super Bowl contender. I think this would be a little bit of a step back, kind of resetting the salary cap and the core a little bit to get ready for another run in 25 and 26. But I still think, and I would almost certainly going to pick the Bills to win the division because I don't think the Jets and Dolphins are trustworthy enough to say that they will certainly overtake them. They could, but I think the Bills are still the better run organization. They have the best quarterback. And at the end of the day, they've figured it out the last 4 years. I think they'll figure it out again.
So, Thad, expand on one thing that you said there a little bit more, because they do carry a lot of dead cap going into the season, second most behind only Denver, which is always alarming to me when you're trying to build a roster with talent. Do you have concerns about that? I mean, they do have Josh Allen, they do have Sean McDermott, but they don't have the kind of talent that you see on paper with both the Jets and the Dolphins, certainly.
For sure. I mean, you go, spot by spot on the roster. The Bills are relying at receiver on a former 5th-round pick, a draft pick from this year, and a middle-of-the-road veteran receiver. They're relying at safety on 2 safeties that other teams didn't want. If you're talking about Taylor Rapp, Mike Edwards, and/or a low 2nd-round pick, they're relying at edge rusher on a former 1st-round pick that hasn't been that intimidating in his 4 years, as we talked about. Whatever Von Miller has left, which could be a lot, but it didn't look like a lot last year, and a Von Miller player that voluntarily took a pay cut to hang around. So, these are all spots where the Bills, maybe not so much edge rusher, where the Bills the last few years have been ridiculously talented, and now they're degrading that a little bit. I mean, center's a spot too. I mean, Connor McGovern might be fine, but we go into the year where the Bills had a established 4-year center with a guard they liked and replaced both of them. So, in general, I mean, on paper, you would think that there's too much being lost there or being changed for all of it to hit. That, just law of averages says some of those things are going to work out, some of them won't. And if some of them won't, this is, a 10 or 11 win team instead of a 12 or a 13 win team.
Buffalo kickoff live coming up, one last preseason game. What's on tap there, Thad?
Yep, noon. We'll start you off. Got a full hour. Hoping to get Brandon Beane on the show. Usually he does talk for this show. Don't want to hex it, but that is the hope and the belief, and I go so far as to say the expectation for Saturday, and then, of course, we'll wrap it up with an hour-long postgame afterward. And, guys, before I let you go, I got a quick fantasy football question. I wanted to spy you.
Okay.
Keeper league. I'm going to keep Kyron Williams and Puka from the Rams, right?
Yeah.
I've been offered a Matthew Stafford trade that's sensible. Is it too much to go in that much on the Rams, even though that Matthew Stafford Puka stack could be very delicious?
Gene,
okay, what is the format? It's not super flex, is it?
It is super flex, 2 quarterbacks, yeah.
So is Stafford would be your quarterback 2 in this situation? No, you're giving
He'd
up
be
Stafford.
No, I'm getting Stafford.
Okay.
I'm getting Stafford.
Uh-huh.
It's a super flex. He'd be my only quarterback, so I'd have to find another one, or I could flex something else. It is PPR also.
God, I like that stack. I do like that
right?
stack,
Yeah.
and I like
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
like.
me too.
What do you? You're getting Stafford. What are you giving up?
It'd be a third or fourth round pick. I'm still negotiating that, but I mean, we save like 5-6 guys, so you're talking about the 90th best player in the draft or something like that.
Yeah, the super flex in your yes.
It's just the question is I'd have 3 Rams.
Yes,
so
but here's my
you know?
take on Kyron Williams, and I feel this way about running back in general in fantasy football. Like the guy that could lead the league in rushing might not get drafted this year, right? Like he could be somebody that goes undrafted because he's buried on a depth chart, and we don't even know. We didn't know about Kyron Williams this time last year. Do you know what I'm saying? Like these guys just kind of emerge, and so I'm not too worried about having 3 Rams because there might be some weeks where Kyron Williams isn't even starting for you.
Right, that's fair. Okay, I like it. I think I'm going to do it, but I just the whole leaning on the Rams thing. It's not like I'm leaning on the Niners, so it's a little different story.
Yeah, Thad, I'm honored that you turned to us for advice.
I do like that stack. I do like that stack a lot. Go get it, Thad. Go get it.
Nice. Okay, we're going to make the trade.
We'll be looking for you on Saturday, man. Thanks for the time. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks for the fantasy advice. Talk to you guys later.
Thad Brown, News 8 sports director. Leaning on us for fantasy advice?
Like that.
He's out of his mind.
He's also betting on the Bills. You want to take a guess what the line is this week? It's funny. It's like preseason. I'm not even paying attention to lines or anything like that. But if you were so inclined, Buffalo, Carolina line is?
Bills -5.
And you are 9.5 points off.
Oh, well, that's why I'm not a Vegas handicapper.
Yeah, Carolina is a 4.5 point favorite for this game based on the fact that they're playing Bryce Young.
Sure. Okay.
Whatever.
That's why I don't bet the preseason. Like, I know that there are some certainties, like you could bet the Bills because they seem to win. You could bet the Ravens because they always seem to win. I just think there's way too much, way too many variables.
Yeah, the Bears are favored tonight in Kansas City.
That's right. And Caleb Williams isn't playing.
So, yeah, just grind it out, cut it out. Yeah.
Happy hour is on the way next. We've got to talk about this. Speaking of fantasy football, this punishment that Maggie and Perloff were discussing this morning here on the Fan. Rochester, we've got practice notes from the final practice of Buffalo Bills training camp. We've got a round of shots coming up. Last call. You can join us at 866-4326, 585-8664-FAN. More next on the Fan.
Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Technically, today's the last day of training camp for the Buffalo Bills as Week 1 against Arizona. Well, that's coming up. Head coach Sean McDermott today said the only player that's been ruled out for that Week 1 game is linebacker Matt Milano. One more preseason game to go. That's the Bills in Carolina. 1 o'clock on Saturday. Our pregame coverage begins at 11 a.m. One note from Carolina today. Quarterback Bryce Young will play in this game. Aaron Judge with home run number 48 on the season. Yankees win again today, 6-0 over Cleveland. Cleveland with just one hit in this game. Garrett Cole getting the win for New York. On the Major League scoreboard, we've got the Nationals over the Rockies by an 8-3 score. Cardinals defeating the Brewers 3-0. Cubs big over the Tigers 10-2. In the fifth, it's the A's leading the Rays 3-1. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
We're working towards taking another step this week, and really the unique part about it is usually you would take that fourth preseason game. In this case, we're doing it in the third preseason week, so I think that the important piece for us is that we not only stay sharp, but we're focused on taking another step.
We're not coaching. We're not results-based. We've never been results-based here.
Mike Danger.
Dude, everything is results-driven. Every walk of life is. What do you mean you're not results-driven?
Yeah, I think he gets over his skis sometimes.
That's a long way of saying we don't care about stats.
Gene Battaglia.
I think so. Like, if you're doing the right things, that's just kind of the way it is. But if you're doing the right things, and that's what he's saying
Process.
there, it's about the process, right?
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
You know, it's funny. I wanted to pick apart something from Sigmund Bloom, who joined us at the 3 o'clock hour. We asked him about the Steelers. He's a Steelers guy. And about quarterback, and he said it was telling that on the first day of training camp, he got the blocking sleds out. Tomlin gets out the blocking sleds, and Russell Wilson strains his calf going through this exercise. And that tells you kind of all you need to know about where Russell Wilson is at this stage of his career and his health. And as he was saying it, I was thinking to myself, what does it say about Matt Milano, who injured his bicep on a tackling dummy? Like, some of these guys, I worry that as they get advanced in their career, their bodies just start to break down, or you're dealing with recovering from something and you're overcompensating, and it leads to you injuring something else, and you're just never able to be fully what you once were.
Milano is an interesting kind of case study because when we're joined by Thad Brown, like, hey, look, it's a big loss, right? Right, big loss. Where is it? The Bills' defense was just fine last year without Matt Milano. I mean, you didn't have him from week 5 on, essentially. They're in the same position at outside linebacker, not having the best linebacker in the game today. Look, in 2022, he was all pro. He was the best linebacker at that outside position. But it's not like the Bills didn't get to where they were last year because the defense failed them. I thought they did okay against Kansas City. Well, I don't want to relive all that. So, but to your point about, I did not heard that story that Russell Wilson got hurt on the blocking sled.
It was the first day of training camp, and these calf strain. I like getting perspectives from guys that have their fingers in all of the different teams and are talking to insiders. And if I know anything about a guy like Sigmund Bloom, believe me when I tell you, he's reading all of the insider reports from every camp. You know, he referenced Joe Buscaglia because he's reading what Joe's putting out there about the Bills, even though he's not here physically at Bills camp. He knows what's up.
And I think hearing and reading and seeing all the film guys talk about Xavier Worthy, and to hear Sigmund Bloom kind of validate what we're fearing, that he in that offense, that's going to be really good for Kansas City. And Kansas City, a team that won the Super Bowl, second straight Super Bowl, and then they looked at their offense and they're like, nah, this isn't good enough. We need to kind of upgrade.
Yeah, he called it the revenge tour. Their offense is going on a revenge tour. They just won the Super Bowl. Yeah, if you watched any of the Chiefs preseason game last week, and I watched a little bit of it. It was on after the Bear game, and it was against the Lions, and there was a connection between Mahomes and Worthy. I'm not going to say it looked like Mahomes to Hill that first year that Mahomes started for the Chiefs, but it looked good. It looked pretty good. And Worthy was so wide open just because he's too damn fast. You just can't catch up with the guy. So that's worrisome if you're a Bills fan. And worrisome, but also expected. I mean, we all thought it the moment that it happened. Oh, God, we're going to have to hear about this now for years to come. And the reality is we may have to hear about
it for years,
Mahomes to Worthy for years to come. We're not always right about everything all the time as fans, but every now and then, we kind of can see what's going to happen before it happens.
I know. Like, if Worthy scores that opening night against the Ravens, that's a great – gosh.
Yeah.
Dude, that's 2 weeks away.
I know.
2 weeks away.
I know.
I'm going to be getting a text from Binkley. Oh, thank you, Buffalo.
Yeah.
Thank you, Buffalo.
That guy,
yeah,
of course.
that guy.
Well, we had Sigmund on with us, talk a little fantasy football. And I know earlier today, Maggie and Perloff were also discussing fantasy football. I have my first draft tonight. I'm excited for that. My original league with buddies that I've been friends with we started this league almost 20 years now that we've been in this league.
Yeah, I think it's not to the point where every league does this. And, in fact, it's still minimal. Like, you give the trophy, you give the cash to the winner, right?
Yeah.
But the idea that you have you ever been part of a league where the team that to deter tanking or whatever it is, the team that finishes last, we got to punish this person?
We used to do our men's league hockey team used to have a fantasy football league that I was a commissioner of. So I got the 12 of the guys from the team.
Mm-hmm.
We all did fantasy. We came up with punishments. And one of the guys that was in the league at the time organized the cross-check cancer game that we used to do for Gildas.
Yeah.
And he's like, the punishment is you have to wear this, jersey at the cross-check cancer game. And Duffy finished in last and wore the jersey. Duffy is a fantasy football loser. Had to wear that for the entirety of the game.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was a fun punishment, but some of these punishments that you hear about are just like, oh, you really want to go all out.
Yeah, like all out, but like we don't have this discretionary income. I'm thinking of the story last year where the punishment was the guy from Connecticut who literally had to spend his whole weekend in airports around the country on connecting flights. Do you remember this? Where he goes from I don't remember the exact order, but you do a loop around. He goes from Hartford to Atlanta to Dallas to L.A. to Vegas to Chicago. And like every stop along the way, he has to document. This was like a big story last year. No, that's first a waste of money. Second of all, that seems excessive. But I hadn't heard of this, and they're discussing doing this as part of their punishment for whatever league they're doing. The Waffle House Challenge. Now, what is the Waffle House Challenge? The Waffle House Challenge is for the person that finishes last in their fantasy football league, you have to commit the 24 hours in a Waffle House. But for every pancake you eat, you get 1 hour knocked off.
Okay.
All right. Now,
I would say then you're not going to be there for 24 hours. And if you were to start at 6 a.m., all right, let me just play this out in my head here. Let me see if I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of the loser of this league, where 24 hours at a Waffle House with the pancake is a reduction. I would say I could get 4 down easy in the 6 a.m. hour. 4. So immediately we're down to 20. I could say I could probably do another 4 in the 7 o'clock hour, and now I've knocked off 8. So now I'm down to 18. No,
yeah,
16.
16. You'd have to prepare. Like if you did the cleanse or something like that, or you just starved yourself.
Don't eat, yeah.
Don't eat, and then you're coming in hot. I bet you could knock down 12. I bet you could do 3 plays. But that if you knock down 12 over 3 hours, all right, you're.
Now, the other strategy here is if you're going to do 24 hours, do you want to go in later because it's more entertaining and you're actually a part of the action? If you go into one of these spots late at night when there's you're people watching and
that's the other part of this too is like where this is debatable and it sounds like fun. Who's policing this? Like who is documenting this the whole way? And what restaurant, even Waffle House, would allow somebody to tie up a table for say 15 to 20 hours?
I think you would have to. You'd obviously have to check in with them in advance. Maybe you have a connection or an in or a friend that works there or knows somebody, right? I would also say that depending on what your punishment is, we don't have a Waffle House here. So I immediately we go to plates, right? Like, okay, let's think about this. what would the punishment be if you wanted to go to a greasy spoon and they're going to serve you plates, and you're going to say for every plate we knock off 2 hours, 4 hours.
Oh my gosh!
You have to knock off 4 hours per plate, right?
But see, I don't know how many people you've done it. Chris Brown told us on the air he's done it, multiple plates in one sitting.
I could do multiple plates in one sitting. I don't know that I could do more than 3 over the course of an 8-hour stretch.
See, I think the pancake is clean and simple. Is it there? Is it gone? Like you when we had little kids, like, hey, clean your plate. Like if you're having the actual plate, I'm talking like, some people refer to as garbage, then you're not.
Who
right,
actually is, and the other question is, like, who's monitoring this? Who's making sure?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, you don't have, like, an employee, and who else is going to document
You
this?
almost need, like, the commissioner of the league to be there to observe and make sure that this is being executed the right way. So even, I mean, like, you're the commissioner, but you're also, like, the punisher. You're, like, the guy that's going to be there to make sure that the person follows through on the punishment and eats all those damn pancakes. I think for Maggie and Perloff, this is a fair challenge. I kind of dig it. I think they'll pull it off.
Yeah, because sometimes they do like wacky stuff and like here's some food and like you would never touch and like as a loser bet. But this seems like there's some strategy to it.
What would it be like if it was a food challenge? What would it be for you? Like if you came to me and said, "Here, you lost a bet. You've got to eat this plate of refried beans." I probably would throw up and
like. Oof.
Is there one? Because I just can't get past that idea. Like the idea of that disgusts me to no end. Like oh God, no, can't do it, won't do it.
I think we all had that food growing up that you couldn't wolf down, and like in our family it was chipped beef. Oh, it was like
what is chipped beef?
I can't even describe it. It was in some sort of sauce or something like that. I haven't tried it, but if I smell it, I'll be like, no, I can't do that.
Chipped beef? Is it like a beef, like a pot roast almost?
Yeah, something like that. Not like a shepherd's pie.
I remember my mom feeding me tongue when I was a kid. I could eat tongue. If you threw that in front of me, I'd be okay. But beans, can't do it. Won't do it. Can't lose. If that's the challenge, nope. Can't do it. If you're saying bean burrito, still can't do it.
Chipped beef is beef that is brined and left to cure for several days before being drained and air dried.
Oh.
And you're adding additional flavor to the meat.
So are you not even cooking it? You're just letting it brine? You're letting it dry brine with salt?
Yeah, that's it. And then what are we putting? There's some other sauce you put it on it. So
I think I would
white sauce. Yeah,
I think I would try that. Yeah. I actually think that sounds pretty awesome. Actually, dry brine beef. What is it? 3 days?
Yeah.
You let it dry brine for 3 days.
3 days.
It gets nice and ripe. I think I would try that. And that's how it cooks.
Yeah, but then the sauce, you have your shortcut, your Hormels, and that sort of stuff. So
meatloaf was always a problem for me as a kid, but now as an adult, I love it. Do you have any of those?
Same. Like with the way the executive producer says it, and I know she's listening. I love your meatloaf, hon. Absolutely.
I don't get any meatloaf in my house. Mom, she don't make the meatloaf for me. Ma, get the meatloaf.
Get the meatloaf.
Doesn't happen. Not in my house.
No, I know. Like you're in charge. Like when you go home, you got to whip it all up there.
No. That's not true. Special occasions, family events, yes, I'm the cook. But on weeknights, it's whatever Danny has planned for us. Danny will serve up, a delicious meal made easy. I can't wait to see what happens here with Maggie and Perloff in this punishment that they have for their fantasy football league. And good luck to everybody this season. Even to have Thad ask us a fantasy football question, I'm kind of honored by that. I don't know that either you or I should be considered fantasy football experts. We talk to a lot of these guys that are.
No, but I think we talk more of it than others. Is that fair?
Sure.
And what is the topic right now? Who's going to be on the 53, or what am I drafting there in round 5? That's what I'm thinking about this weekend, Data. What am I more looking forward to? Fantasy football homework or watching Ben DiNucci?
Hey, you're going to watch Ben DiNucci. You know why? 'Cause he's Italian.
He has to make this team, right? At least the practice squad. Can you imagine the possibilities? Ben DiNucci in Rochester.
Yeah, practice
on
squad.
the west side.
Put him on the practice squad. Bring him over. Let's get him signing all kinds of stuff. Let's get him co-hosting Italian Carousel Sunday mornings on the Fan. Hey, it's me, Ben DiNucci. Joe Capogreco off. Me, Ben DiNucci. Italian Carousel on the Fan.
Somebody should call up Joe Capogreco. He does take calls. What do you think of Ben DiNucci? Do you think Joe Capogreco would know Ben DiNucci?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Playing a lot of Teddy Bianchi and Italian music. Your favorite soccer scores from Italy. Yeah, no, but now that football season is back, I mean, the Sunday morning tradition exists on the Fan where you get up, you start your day with a little Italian Carousel right before Buffalo Bills pregame. I mean, there are worse ways to get your Sunday morning going during football season.
Danger, I've got a little bit of breaking news here. And
so do I kind of play the sound, or does this qualify?
Absolutely. For all people, you play this sound.
Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
What would you say to a report from Andrew Marchand that coming up for the Yankees postseason, that one will come out of retirement? John Sterling is considering coming out of retirement to call Yankee games during the playoffs.
He was making the rounds the other night, and did like half an inning sitting in as a guest.
Which that's fine.
Yeah.
But now that you have other people doing the job, and I'm just going to come right in for the best part.
I don't want to be judgmental because I'm not there. I don't want to be judgmental because I know people who are going through this or have gone through this, where you've done this for a long, long time, this or any profession, for a long, long time, and your time comes and you retire, but you don't feel like you're retired, or you want to stay involved, or you want to, you miss the juice, you miss the recognition, miss, and that's got to be a hard thing. If you're Sterling, if you're anybody that's done this for a long time, it's got to be a hard thing to walk away from and try to build different routines and different habits when all you've known for the better part of decades is this. So while I think it's not a great idea and probably not something that the Yankees should do, if it's Sterling that's bringing it up, then I kind of understand why.
Well, I think the Yankees aren't doing if they want to go to the future, then you've got to find a way to politely say no. Like, you can redirect. If somebody is, coming to you with an idea, but you don't like the idea, you redirect. You don't say no. You say, John, what if we had you do a memory segment on Yes, or whatever it is. You can have him doing something else. But for these guys that have actually called the games here, Ricky Ricardo, Justin Shackle, those guys, Barberi has done. Like, I'm getting used to them.
Yeah.
They're not bad, but you're just going to come in and take away the assignment?
How about this? Because I know the Cubs used to do this. When I used to watch the Cubs growing up, and the Cubs were on national TV, right? They were on WGN, and you could watch every Cubs game if you had that on your cable package. They used to rotate. The color guy would rotate between the radio broadcast and the TV broadcast.
A lot of teams do that.
They still do that?
They still do that. I think the thing, and this is close to us, where, hey, the voice of the Rochester Americans is Don Stevens. But there's going to be games he's not going to Belleville. He's not going to go to Utica.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there'll be Andrew Mossbrooks. And that, all right, physically it gets tougher. And Don Stevens isn't the age of John Sterling. You know how old John Sterling is?
He's in the 80s, right?
86. 86. And look, ageism is a real thing. You can't say you're
He's still sharp, man.
Yeah. But physically, he decided, I can't do this anymore, and
Sure.
he walked away.
I wonder, and then there's the other thing is if you say yes to him, yeah, sure, we can have you call some postseason. Well, what if they go deep? What if they are a World Series team? You think Sterling's going to give up the mic to one of the young bucks? No way, man. He wants one more call. He wants one more World Series call with this team.
Sterling actually gives a quote to the New York Post on this. It's the ball is in their court, he says, WFAN meaning. The ball is in their court. They would have to ask. I would feel bad for the guys who have done the games all year.
Yes. Okay, that's the right answer.
Well, you feel bad, but you would still go ahead if they
That's
asked you.
That's the right answer. And it, squarely puts the ball in the hands of management there at our Odyssey Sports sister station, WFAN. I think he's a legend. I tell you what, man, for years I thought this guy's just too much. It's just obnoxious. I can't do it. But the longer he did it, the more he committed to it. And the longevity, it's hard not to respect it. And all that said, enjoy time, man. And we're not here that long. Do you really? I mean, I guess if that you don't really consider that work if you're John Sterling, but I would say
I would
no.
just remind him he walked away. Yankees didn't force him. It was very awkward too. Like he did the opening week, and it's crappy weather first week in April. And it's like, yeah, you know what, I'm done.
Well, we had him on. We did have him on with us once.
Yes, he was promoting a podcast. I remember this. Does he even still have the podcast?
I don't know.
Like, hey, would you guys like John Sterling? Of course we love John Sterling. I call up John Sterling, and normally the way this works is you're talking to an assistant. You're talking to somebody in the office. You're not here, set this up. Here's the number. Great. Call up, I'm thinking of calling the office. Hello? Like, oh my gosh, it is John. Mr. Sterling, hi, this is Gene and Rochester. I love Rochester. Yes, Eastman Kodak. I went up there and
Oh, he's one of us.
Oh, yes.
Rochesterian, yes. John Sterling.
Yes, I love. Oh, yes. Well, Mr. Sterling, what could we line up? I don't know. I'm at the hairdresser right now, young man. All you producers are the same. Just call me tomorrow. Call me and I will pick up. All you producers are the same. Do you want to do it at this time or that time? Just call me. Yes, sir. Pleasure to talk to you.
I'm at the hairdressers. I'm at the hairdressers. You're John Sterling and you're at the hairdressers? Can't say you're at the barber? You're at the hairdressers?
At the hairdresser. Well,
okay.
Look, Ed, to his credit, we had him on.
He was delightful.
He was gracious. He was funny. He was everything you would want in a guest. And what did the Yankees? I think the Yankees lost to Houston that year in the playoffs. I think it was right before then. So.
Yeah. That's a tough one. I mean, it was hearing him on, in the booth the other night, just making a guest appearance. It caught my attention. I mean, like normally if it's background noise, if you're kind of like me and you're a casual fan,
right.
I'm not hanging on every pitch like most fans are. It caught my attention. I'm like, oh, what's Sterling doing up there? And so I thought that was interesting. And now this story a couple days later.
Yeah, normally when people walk away in that business, they walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Like you haven't heard Marv Albert or any of these guys. Vin Scully, none of them came back.
Right.
And did like a guest hit. So Sterling obviously missing it a little bit.
Well, yeah, and it helps that you've got Judge. I mean, he probably wants another call. Judgy and bless.
Oh, that's it, right? Like Judge has a chance because if he gets to, he's going to get to 50 by Labor Day, right? 1 month to go, 4 weeks to go.
How narcissistic are you if you're a play-by-play guy and you're like, they can't break this record without me? I need to be on the call. It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be just. I'm not saying that's what he's thinking, but kind of feels like that's what he's thinking.
Well, or when was the last time he called a World Series win for the Yankees? It would be 2009, Mike Danger.
Yeah.
And no, that's not misfitting of me.
No, those are facts.
Those are facts.
Those are facts.
I made up a new word.
Misfitting.
I figure if I take the shot at myself first, self-deprecating humor, that lessens your power. That lessens your power.
It humanizes you. You should absolutely engage in self-deprecation whenever possible. I did it earlier. Chris wondering why my wife doesn't watch football the way his wife. Why would she watch football, Chris? Why would she watch football and lust after Josh Allen when she has all of this to look at all the time when I'm at home? I mean, come on. What are we talking about here? That's me being sarcastic and self-deprecating. Hope you can pick that up over there.
Actually, I didn't pick it up. So
you have to look at me more than she does. It's got to be tough. A round of shots next in the sports bar.
Yeah, we will get to the good day for the Yankees. We'll go over that and the rest of baseball. We had a team make a managerial change today. Wait a second. Now in August? Yeah. Well, will this provide results? We shall see. Rick Pitino got robbed. I don't believe it. And yes, we have another fantasy football story here about picking the order, Danger. Like, it's one thing, like draw out of a hat or do the cards.
We do a double blind system here at Odyssey Rochester. Yeah,
I don't like hitting the button. Come up with something creative.
I don't mind hitting the button if your platform tells you how many times you hit the button. Like, if you hit it once, truly random, fine. If you hit it multiple times and it shows that you've hit it multiple times, now something nefarious is going on.
Yes.
The double blind, I think, is the foolproof way, though. I love the double blind system. I do think that's the best way.
Double blind, and then you record it. Nobody complains.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Well, there's a different way you could do it.
All right. We're going to learn more about that next. Fantasy football on the brain. It's the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. A round of shots next on the Fan.
favorite sports station, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
I love listening to the Sports Bar on the Odyssey app.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports Update.
Today, the last day of training camp for the Buffalo Bills, week 1 against the Cardinals coming up. Head coach Sean McDermott says the only player that has been ruled out for week 1 is linebacker Matt Milano. There is one last tune-up that McDermott is looking forward to.
Again, I want to see us take another step this week, and it's unfortunately, I wish I could see that in game live action, right? So unfortunately, for the first group, it won't happen, but it also presents an opportunity for us to strike with some of these young guys who are going to get some valuable time this weekend.
Bills in Carolina, 1 o'clock on Saturday. Our pregame coverage here on the Fan Rochester will begin at 11 a.m. Aaron Judge, another home run this afternoon, number 48 on the season. Yankees win 6-0 over Cleveland. Cubs big over the Tigers, 10-2. Red Wings tonight at Lehigh Valley. Gene Battaglia in the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, the Fan Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. One Bills Live in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Weekday afternoons on The Fan, Rochester.
All right, let's get to a round of shots here on The Fan.
Yeah, more on that Yankee game today, Danger. And Yankee fans should be smiling here the way they took care of Cleveland. It wasn't just the bats here. As we mentioned, Judge number 48, you had Giancarlo Stanton, his 21st of the season. And you had Garrett Cole today. 1 hit in 6 innings. He did walk 5, but still, the Yankees allowing just that 1 hit today. 6-0 the win over the Guardians. So the Yankees on the season now 75-53. And taking a look at the standings here, the Yankees now with a full game lead over the Orioles. The Orioles tonight sending Corbin Burns to the mound as they're home against Houston.
Okay, that's heating up. That's going to be a fun race to watch down the stretch. And yeah, you got to feel good if you're a Yankee fan knowing that you just took care of a team that a lot of people thought quietly was the best team in Major League Baseball, the Guardians. They kind of handled them. I mean, like they should have won Game 1 if not for a base running blunder.
If first base is open, don't give Aaron Judge anything to hit.
Yeah.
Like, what is this machismo? I'm going to come. Don't. I don't understand how hard that is. Like, we've reached the Barry Bonds part of we can't throw, right?
Yeah, he's
like walking.
In the last 99, when you see the stats of him, the last 99 games, last 100 games, it's otherworldly. He's doing some amazing things.
The team that is in the biggest free fall this season in baseball, who is it? You could say it's the Seattle Mariners. Once they were up comfortably in the AL West. In June, they led the division by 10 games.
Yeah.
Not only do they not lead the division, they're 5 back now in the wild card. Ken Rosenthal, Mark Craig the first of The Athletic, to report that Scott Service, the manager, just got fired here on August 22nd.
Oh, boy.
Catcher Dan Wilson was not a catcher anymore, but he's going to be the new manager. He has no coaching experience, but he was a special instructor during spring training.
Yeah, I wonder what goes on behind the scenes there to lead to this free fall. Is it all service? Is there some backstabbing going on? Is there some jockeying for positioning? Is there power-hungry young coaches going against the manager? It's too bizarre. It screams of dysfunction, and that's too bad because I think the Mariners in the postseason are fun. I would love to see the Mariners in the postseason. We got what one? Did we get one game out of them last year?
They played Toronto? What did I say? Funny how, I can't remember.
Right. The play-in, the wild card weekend or the wild card round is kind of like it's easy to forget. Yeah, it's very easy. I think that was what they were, a wild card team last year.
Yeah, Paul Skeens on the mound tonight for the Pittsburgh Pirates, who host the Reds. Now, here's the story, and then it hit me after I'm writing this, what this is all about. Would you believe that Skeens is no longer the favorite to win the NL Rookie of the Year? It's now San Diego center fielder Jackson Merrill. Merrill's fantastic. Merrill listed at -170. Skeens now at +120. Plus money for Paul Skeens. Wait a second. Merrill's having a great year. Don't get me wrong. But the stats not going to wow you. 291, 18 home runs. Many of those home runs very timely for the Padres. Have we, Danger, just moved on to the next thing here? Skeens, 7-2. 2.3 ERA and a whip of 0.97.
I think one player plays for a team that's going to be in the postseason, and the other one does not. The other one's in Pittsburgh.
Well, if you're going to go home and watch ESPN tonight, and this is what hit me after the fact. How did I learn about this? Because they're putting this on the scroll. You would never see betting tidbits, but then, wait a second. It's almost like they're telling you, like we're telling you, wait a second, why wouldn't you take plus money on Paul Skeens? Like, it's almost like ESPN is presenting a story to you to say, go bet this now on ESPN Bet.
What? Are you said this is next level Inception stuff? You mean to tell me that a sports entity like ESPN would use their own platform to try and get more people to bet on their other platform, their own online betting casino?
Like they're going out of their way. You could have put this stat out there any other day.
Yeah.
Paul Skeens is pitching tonight. Did you know that right now Vegas has him as plus money? What?
Yeah, you see that and you think, oh, yeah, absolutely. Paul Skeens is the guy. Got to get him at plus 120. I am not going near that. I'm not going near that. And none of that is surprising, by the way. It'll only get worse. Wait until football season starts, man. Wait until the NFL gets going. They're gonna use their platform as much as they can to pull you in and use their platform for your sports gambling.
Yeah, this is just know where you get your news from, I suppose. Last week we had super agent Lee Steinberg on.
Rochesterian.
We say that because he once dated a girl from Rochester.
He's one of us.
Don't know if that qualifies him. The one thing we did discuss was about these Olympic athletes where, okay, the Olympics are wrapped up. How do you capitalize? How do you keep this going? How do you make money? Well, one athlete is crossing over. His name is Steven Nedrosic.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Steven Nedrosic. You may not know the name Nedrosic, but you remember the pommel horse guy with the glasses.
That's right. Remember him.
He won 2 bronzes. Well, the 25-year-old has now parlayed that to Dancing with the Stars. Can you believe this is season number 33 for the show?
I thought to myself during the Olympics, my God, professional athletes have gotten more attractive than I ever remember. And I'm not saying this to say women were more attractive or men. Everybody, all of them. They're all peak condition. They're all fantastic athletes for one reason or another, but they all just looked fantastic. Just like supermodels.
You're sounding like baseball writer, but go on.
Well, it hit me. I realize now why that is. Because of the world that we live in now, their opportunities to make money after the Olympics are over are by being influencers. And how can you best be an influencer? If you're attractive, the algorithm loves you on social media. It's a fact.
It's wrong.
It's wrong.
It's terribly wrong.
It's wrong, but it's a fact. It's true. If you look a certain way, you will get more likes. If you act a certain way, you might get some. But if you act a certain way and look a certain way, these Olympic athletes are all going to benefit and be influencers through all these different social media platforms because of how they look, because of their performance. They deserve anything that they get coming their way. They work their asses off. I'm not taking anything away from them. But we always wonder, like, okay, the Olympics are over. How are they going to make theirs? I think to bring it back to Paul Skeens, I think when you look at somebody like Olivia Dunn and you see what she's been able to do just as a college athlete, not even as an Olympian, these Olympians, the stars of Team USA, they're going to have a little bit more to work with, I think, than what we've seen out of Olympians and athletes in the past.
Or going into it, maybe you come up with an angle. And it's not necessarily an angle, but they played it up a little bit. When he was done with his pommel horse routine, did Steven Nedrosic need to put on his glasses right then and there or take them off right then and there? The Clark
he
Kent
made a moment.
Yeah, the Clark Kent routine. And we joke, oh, look at that nerd up there. But
no, they
know.
They know that the camera is always watching. Simone Biles knew that the camera was watching when she turned her head. Right, when she did that thing, that look, where she made that quick look.
Yeah, she made herself a meme.
And for a moment there, Simone Biles was a meme. And I was talking with Jenna Cottrell about this at training camp because Jenna Cottrell just put out a tweet when they say we're getting ice cream. And then it was the meme of Biles turning her head. Ice cream. And it went viral. She's like, I work my ass off producing great content for the Buffalo Bills, for BuffaloPlus.com. I could do hundreds of hours editing video and producing this stuff, and ice cream is the thing that goes viral because it's attached to this moment from the Olympics with Simone Biles. So good on them. And look, I don't know that Dancing with the Stars is anything that's going to open doors for this guy, but take advantage of the moment and parlay it into whatever you can for as long as you can.
How much does he get paid for that?
Oh, I'm not sure. Dancing with the Stars to me feels rigged. I mean, when you think about this guy, a professional athlete, he's going to be a better dancer than average Joe, right? Like, I know that it's Dancing with the Stars and you're starting with people that have been some way, shape, or form celebrities, D-list or C-list celebrities. But when the professional athletes show up to Dancing with the Stars, immediately I'm like, well, they're going to win. They have an advantage. They're professional athletes. You know, if Kelly Clarkson was on Dancing with the Stars, maybe she was, I don't know, but she would have a harder time, although she does have entertainment as a background, so she's got that as an advantage. I want actual, I want to watch a tire fire. I want to watch somebody that doesn't know how to dance get up there and try to dance.
So like the William Hung of dancing, and
That's
that would
right.
get you tune in.
That's right.
A lot of these shows, it's just.
I used to watch it with my kids all the time. We would watch it all the time, and I got away from watching it as they grew up. And good for them if they're still trucking along and they can get an Olympic athlete to perform. But I just think unfair advantage. He's an athlete. He's going to be better at it than most people. St.
John's basketball head coach Rick Pitino. His office was robbed, Danger. Amongst the things taken were memorabilia, a sword, a bullhorn. And if you think there's just some bored kids here, doesn't sound that way. Police putting out a statement that two men somehow gained entry without authorization and removed a number of items before fleeing on a moped heading westbound on the Union Turnpike.
Okay, so I have a couple of thoughts here. One, moped, not the greatest of getaway vehicles. Let's work on your heist ability here. Your heist is flawed if you're gonna escape on a moped.
Well, I would think, okay, look for a moped. Okay, it's not like saying look for the gray Acura or whatever.
Yeah. Second thought, a sword in your office.
Yeah,
that's a move.
Yep, and apparently this was worth something because Pitino went on X and said how unhappy he was.
If you have a sword in your office. Are you un-F-withable? I think you're un-F-withable if you have a sword in your office. That's a power move. I mean, I always had a piece of sports equipment for years. It was either a baseball bat or a hockey stick in my office.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of time, they just disappeared. I don't know who took them or where they went, or maybe they did it for my own good. We can't have this guy roaming the hallways carrying a baseball bat. It's not... I could get unhinged at any moment. We don't want that. So the baseball bat disappeared. The hockey stick disappeared. What if I show up and I have a sword in my office? I want a sword. Yeah, that's a power move. I like that.
I don't know if HR would allow it in the building, but...
if it had significance, if it had meaning, if...
yeah, you're talking this is from medieval times.
Or it was handed down... in my family or something.
Well, like these guys, okay, great, you've got this memorabilia. You can't put it online. How do you, as they say, fence it? Like you're just basically stealing it, and then, hey, look what I have. And then you really have to keep it under wraps.
Right. You're on a moped on the Union Turnpike with all of this gear. What are you doing? This is a heist gone bad. Yeah, you can't. This is not how you plan a heist, boys.
Rick Pitino. The answer to the question, and there's no other answer, if you could have dinner with one college basketball coach, don't tell me Boeheim. Don't tell me Coach K. Don't tell me somebody from John Wooden. Who would you have dinner? And it would be Pitino, would it not?
I might go Jay Wright.
I
might go Jay Wright. Pitino's there, though, for sure. That would be an interesting conversation. I remember at the height of his powers when he was with Kentucky, he had a book, and I remember getting the audio book, and it was, motivational stuff and all. How many of those college basketball coaches have done books? Like, they all, at one point or another, have done a book talking about motivation and what it takes to be a winner and blah, blah, blah. So I feel like I've already kind of gotten inside of his mind a little bit, and I wouldn't get as much from him. But Jay Wright is interesting to me because, he walked away with a lot of good years left.
Yeah, I thought that might have just been burnout, and then we'd see him reappear, and that's why Philly Sports Radio can't let it go whenever the Sixers might need a change or whatever it is. They're pining for him.
Yeah.
Finally, in many Major League Baseball clubhouses, there's an activity going on, and it's an activity that Danger, you and I, and a lot of us are going to be doing. The fantasy football draft. In the Oakland A's, they're no exception. The A's have a league, the players there. But this is what makes it different, determining the draft order. The A's players went up to the top level at the Oakland Coliseum, the one that's tarped off, and the locals call it Mount Al. And the players threw baseballs from the upper deck, trying to get closest to the target to determine the draft order. They measured this just like you would for bocce, seeing who came closest. Relief pitcher Scott Alexander gets the number 1 overall pick.
I like that. A little competition to determine draft order. Don't just do the reverse of how everybody placed the year before. Don't do the double blind. Don't let the computer pick it. Make it a competition of skill. Yeah.
They did this in the pregame too. That's what so that's how this got caught on camera. Like, what is that? And there's this like hula hoop thing.
Yeah,
out
it's a
in
big
center
deal.
field. Yeah.
I love it. I think that's a great move. Maybe that's moving forward. We do games of skill to determine draft order. No more double blind.
No.
Games of skill. We're all skilled.
Beats of strength.
That's right. Tomorrow on the show.
Oh, it's Fantasy Friday? Can we call it?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. We are so dialed in with fantasy football. We'll talk to 2 of our favorites tomorrow from the New York Post. Our buddy Drew Loftus stops by at 3:25, and we're running it back this season with our guy from Yahoo Fantasy. Andy Behrens will be stopping by the sports bar to share his thoughts coming up at 4:25.
The 2 of you are going to be like, oh, did you see the Bears last night? I love the Bears.
We might,
Yeah.
Gene. Don't judge. That's tomorrow. If you missed any of today, go back and listen in the free-to-download Odyssey app with Rewind. You can catch any part of the show you may have missed for the next 72 hours. JR Sport Brief next on The Fan.
You're listening to